In the depths of human history lies a tapestry woven with threads of the extraordinary, the inexplicable, and the downright mystifying. Across every continent, buried beneath layers of time and civilization, we find remnants that challenge our understanding of what ancient peoples could accomplish, what they knew, and how they lived. These are not mere curiosities gathering dust in museum display cases. They are profound enigmas that continue to perplex historians, archaeologists, engineers, and scientists to this very day. Welcome to a journey through time's greatest mysteries, where established timelines crumble under new evidence, where ancient technologies seem impossibly advanced, and where entire civilizations vanish without leaving satisfactory explanations behind. This exploration will take us from the colossal stone blocks of Baalbek that defy conventional construction methods, to the enigmatic manuscripts that no scholar has been able to decipher, from underwater cities that weren't supposed to exist, to artifacts that appear centuries before they should have been possible. What makes these mysteries so compelling is not just their age, but their ability to resist explanation, despite our modern scientific capabilities. In an era where we can peer into the furthest reaches of the universe and decode the human genome, it's humbling to realize that some of humanity's oldest puzzles remain as baffling today as they were when first discovered. These ancient enigmas serve as stark reminders that our ancestors may have possessed knowledge, capabilities, and experiences that we have yet to fully comprehend or recover. The sheer scope of these mysteries spans the globe and encompasses virtually every aspect of human achievement. We find architectural marvels that push the boundaries of what we believe ancient peoples could construct with primitive tools. Stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons, moved and precisely placed with surgical accuracy. Underground complexes carved from solid rock with such precision that modern tools would struggle to replicate the work. Temples hewn from single pieces of mountain, defying every principle of construction we understand. Beyond the architectural wonders, we encounter artifacts that seem to leap centuries ahead of their time. Maps depicting continents with accuracy that shouldn't have been possible given the supposed geographical knowledge of their era. Mechanical devices displaying computational abilities that wouldn't be seen again for over 1,000 years. Metallurgical achievements that modern science struggles to replicate, using techniques that have been lost to time. Perhaps even more intriguing are the written mysteries, texts, codes, and inscriptions that have withstood centuries of scholarly attempts at translation. Languages that appear to have no linguistic relatives. Manuscripts filled with illustrations of plants and astronomical diagrams that correspond to no known systems, and coded messages carved in stone that have defeated every cryptographic approach attempted against them. These written enigmas suggest that ancient peoples possessed knowledge systems and ways of thinking that remain foreign to our modern understanding. The geographical distribution of these mysteries tells its own fascinating story. From the megalithic structures of Europe to the precision-carved temples of South America, from the underwater monuments of Japan to the massive earthworks of North America, every inhabited continent holds its share of inexplicable remnants. This global distribution suggests that the capacity for extraordinary achievement was not limited to a few advanced civilizations, but was somehow a widespread characteristic of ancient humanity. What's particularly striking is how many of these mysteries involve capabilities that we've only recently achieved, or in some cases haven't achieved at all. Ancient peoples appear to have moved blocks of stone that would challenge modern heavy lifting equipment, created alloys with properties that elude contemporary metallurgy, and demonstrated astronomical knowledge that required centuries of careful observation to accumulate. The precision of their work often exceeds what we might expect even from modern craftsmen using contemporary tools. The dating of many of these mysteries adds another layer of complexity to our understanding. Archaeological evidence continues to push back the timeline of human achievement, revealing that sophisticated civilizations existed thousands of years earlier than previously thought possible. Sites once considered impossibly old have been validated through multiple dating methods, forcing historians to reconsider fundamental assumptions about the development of human society, technology, and culture. Consider the implications of discovering a 12,000-year-old temple complex that predates agriculture itself, suggesting that complex religious and social structures existed before we thought civilization was even possible. Or finding maps from the 16th century that accurately depict the coastline of Antarctica, a continent that wasn't officially discovered until 1820 and whose ice-free coastline hasn't been visible for thousands of years. These discoveries don't just fill in gaps in our historical knowledge, they fundamentally challenge our understanding of how human knowledge and capability have developed over time. The technological mysteries are particularly compelling because they often involve achievements that we can observe and measure, yet cannot fully explain or replicate. Iron pillars that have resisted corrosion for over 1,600 years, despite being exposed to India's harsh climate. Stone construction so precise that the joints between massive blocks cannot accommodate even a razor blade. Underground chambers carved with such accuracy that their walls remain perfectly smooth and their corners form perfect right angles, all achieved without any evidence of the tools or techniques that would have been required for such precision. Many of these mysteries involve construction projects of staggering scale and ambition. Entire cities carved from solid rock, underground complexes spanning vast areas, and megalithic structures that dwarf anything built in the modern era. The sheer audacity of these projects suggests civilizations with organizational capabilities, planning horizons, and technical knowledge far beyond what we typically associate with ancient societies. The fact that many of these structures were abandoned or lost to history adds another layer of mystery. What could cause a civilization capable of such achievements to simply disappear? The human element of these mysteries is equally fascinating. Many involve the sudden disappearance of entire peoples, leaving behind only their monuments and artifacts as silent testimony to their existence. Advanced civilizations that thrived for centuries seem to have vanished overnight, sometimes leaving behind evidence of hasty abandonment, other times simply fading from the historical record without explanation. These disappearances raise fundamental questions about the stability of civilization itself and the factors that can cause even the most advanced societies to collapse or abandon their achievements. Religious and spiritual elements permeate many of these mysteries, suggesting that ancient peoples had belief systems and practices that may have differed dramatically from anything we understand today. Monuments aligned with astronomical events with precision that required detailed knowledge of celestial mechanics. Artifacts and structures that seem designed for purposes we cannot fathom, incorporating symbolism and imagery that has no clear parallel in known religious traditions. These spiritual dimensions add depth to the mysteries, suggesting that ancient peoples may have operated from fundamentally different understandings of reality, knowledge, and human purpose. The preservation of these mysteries presents its own set of questions. Many have survived thousands of years of natural disasters, climate changes, and human interference, yet remain as enigmatic today as when they were first created. This longevity isn't accidental. It speaks to the advanced planning and sophisticated understanding of materials and construction techniques possessed by their creators. They built not just for their own time, but seemingly for the ages, as if they anticipated that future generations would need to grapple with the questions their work would raise. Modern archaeological methods have added new dimensions to these mysteries rather than solving them. Advanced dating techniques, satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and chemical analysis have revealed additional layers of complexity in artifacts and structures that were already difficult to explain. In many cases, more sophisticated analysis has only deepened the mystery, revealing levels of sophistication and knowledge that seem even more impossible given our understanding of ancient capabilities. The interdisciplinary nature of these mysteries makes them particularly challenging to address. Understanding them fully requires expertise in archaeology, engineering, astronomy, linguistics, metallurgy, geology, and numerous other fields. No single discipline has all the tools necessary to unlock these ancient enigmas, yet collaboration between different fields of study often reveals contradictions and impossibilities that make the mysteries even more perplexing. What emerges from this global survey of ancient mysteries is a picture of human history far more complex and sophisticated than our standard narratives suggest. Rather than a simple progression from primitive to advanced, we see evidence of sophisticated knowledge and capabilities appearing throughout human history in ways that challenge our understanding of cultural and technological development. Ancient peoples appear to have achieved things that we struggle to accomplish today, using methods that remain mysterious for purposes that we can only guess at. These mysteries also raise profound questions about the nature of knowledge itself. How was complex astronomical, mathematical, and engineering knowledge transmitted across cultures and generations in societies we assume had limited means of communication and record-keeping? Why do we find similar sophisticated techniques and symbolic systems in cultures separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time? What knowledge have we lost that was once common among ancient peoples? The economic implications of these ancient achievements are staggering. Many involve the coordination of massive workforces over extended periods, the transport of materials across vast distances, and the deployment of resources on scales that would challenge modern nations. This suggests economic and organizational systems of remarkable sophistication, yet we have little evidence of how such systems operated or what motivated societies to invest so heavily in projects whose purposes we cannot always discern. Environmental factors add another dimension to many of these mysteries. Climate change, natural disasters, and geological processes have altered the landscape dramatically since these monuments and artifacts were created. What appears impossible today may have been more feasible under different environmental conditions. Conversely, some achievements seem to anticipate environmental changes that wouldn't occur for centuries or millennia after their creation. The cultural context of these mysteries is often as puzzling as their technical aspects. Many seem to reflect belief systems, values, and priorities that have no clear parallel in recorded history. The enormous investment of resources and effort they represent suggests societies driven by motivations and goals that we may not fully understand. What cultural forces could inspire civilizations to undertake projects of such scale and ambition? What beliefs or knowledge systems justified the enormous expenditure of time and resources these achievements represent? As we embark on this exploration of history's greatest mysteries, we do so not as passive observers of ancient puzzles, but as participants in humanity's ongoing quest to understand its own past. Each mystery we encounter represents a question not just about ancient peoples, but about the nature of human knowledge, capability, and achievement. They challenge us to think beyond the limitations of our current understanding and to consider possibilities that our modern worldview might too quickly dismiss. The mysteries we will explore span millennia and continents, encompassing achievements in engineering, astronomy, linguistics, metallurgy, and numerous other fields. They include structures that couldn't be built today, artifacts that shouldn't have existed when they were created, and entire civilizations that vanished, leaving only questions behind. Each represents a genuine puzzle that has resisted explanation despite decades or centuries of scholarly investigation. What makes these mysteries particularly compelling in our modern era is how they challenge the comfortable assumption that human knowledge and capability have followed a steady upward trajectory. Instead, they suggest a far more complex picture of human achievement, one where sophisticated knowledge and remarkable capabilities appear throughout history in ways that don't fit our standard narratives of progress and development. These ancient enigmas serve as humbling reminders that despite our technological achievements and scientific knowledge, fundamental questions about human history and capability remain unanswered. They suggest that our ancestors may have known things we have forgotten, achieved things we struggle to replicate, and operated from understandings of reality that we have yet to recover or comprehend. The journey ahead will take us through time and across continents, from the massive stone blocks of Lebanon to the mysterious manuscripts of medieval Europe, from the sunken cities of the Caribbean to the carved temples of India. Each mystery we encounter will challenge our assumptions and expand our understanding of what ancient peoples accomplished and what questions they left for us to ponder. As we begin this exploration, we do so with the understanding that these are not merely academic curiosities, but profound questions about the nature of human knowledge, achievement, and history itself. They remind us that the past is not a simple story of progress from primitive to advanced, but a complex tapestry of achievements, mysteries, and lost knowledge that continues to challenge our understanding of what it means to be human. The mysteries await, each one a doorway into questions that have puzzled humanity for generations. They stand as silent testimony to achievements we cannot fully explain, knowledge we cannot completely understand, and capabilities we struggle to replicate. They are the ancient mysteries that science cannot yet explain, and they are about to reveal their secrets or deepen their enigmas as we embark on this extraordinary journey through time's greatest puzzles. As we delve deeper into the enigmas that have puzzled humanity for generations, we encounter perhaps the most visually stunning and physically imposing mysteries of all, the massive stone structures and architectural marvels that our ancestors left behind. These monuments to human ambition and capability stand as silent witnesses to achievements that challenge every assumption we hold about ancient technology, organization, and knowledge. From the impossible precision of perfectly fitted megalithic blocks to the sheer audacity of temples carved from entire mountains, these architectural mysteries represent some of the most compelling evidence that ancient civilizations possessed capabilities far beyond what our historical timelines suggest was possible. The megalithic structures scattered across our planet share common characteristics that make them particularly mystifying. They involve the movement and precise placement of stone blocks of extraordinary weight and size, often transported across vast distances and fitted together with tolerances that modern construction equipment would struggle to achieve. They demonstrate knowledge of engineering principles, mathematical relationships, and construction techniques that seem to appear fully formed in the archaeological record without evidence of gradual development or experimentation. Most puzzling of all, many were apparently abandoned or lost to history, despite representing investments of resources and effort that would challenge modern nations. Our journey through these architectural enigmas begins in the ancient city of Baalbek, located in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley. Here, among the ruins of what was once a magnificent temple complex, we find some of the largest worked stone blocks ever quarried and placed by human hands. The Roman temples that crown this site are impressive enough in their own right, but they pale in comparison to the megalithic foundation stones that support them. These foundation blocks, known as the trilithon, each weigh approximately 750 tons and measure roughly 65 feet in length, 14 feet in height, and 12 feet in width. To put this in perspective, each stone weighs more than 4 fully loaded Boeing 747 aircraft. The mystery deepens when we consider how these colossal blocks were moved from the quarry to their final position. The quarry itself lies about 3/4 of a mile from the temple site, and the route between them involves navigating uneven terrain and a significant uphill climb. Modern heavy lifting equipment capable of moving such massive loads simply did not exist until the late 20th century, and even today, relocating stones of this size would require careful planning, specialized equipment, and significant infrastructure modifications to accommodate the weight and dimensions involved. But the Baalbek mystery extends beyond even these incredible trilithon stones. In the nearby quarry lies an even more massive block known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing an estimated 1,000 tons. This block appears to have been fully quarried and prepared for transport, yet it was never moved from its original location. Even more astounding is the recent discovery of another stone block in the same quarry that weighs an estimated 1,650 tons, making it the heaviest worked stone block known to exist anywhere on Earth. The precision with which these massive blocks were cut and fitted raises additional questions about ancient capabilities. The stones show clear evidence of having been shaped using sophisticated tools and techniques, yet no satisfactory explanation has been provided for how ancient peoples could have achieved such precision on such a massive scale. The joints between blocks are so tight that even today, after centuries of weathering and seismic activity, it is impossible to insert a knife blade between them. This level of precision would be challenging to achieve even with modern diamond cutting equipment and laser-guided measurement systems. Archaeological dating of the Baalbek site presents its own set of puzzles. While the Roman temples clearly date from the imperial period, the massive foundation stones appear to be much older. Some researchers suggest they may predate the Roman occupation by thousands of years, possibly dating back to Phoenician or even earlier periods. If this proves accurate, it would mean that an unknown ancient civilization possessed stoneworking and heavy lifting capabilities that exceed anything demonstrated in recorded history. The purpose of creating such massive foundation stones remains unclear. From an engineering perspective, smaller stones would have been far easier to work with and would have provided adequate structural support for any conceivable building project. The decision to use blocks of such extraordinary size suggests either an unknown practical purpose or a demonstration of capability that goes beyond mere structural necessity. Some researchers have proposed that the massive stones were intended to create earthquake-resistant foundations, while others suggest they may have served ritualistic or symbolic purposes that we cannot fully comprehend. Moving from Lebanon to the hills of southeastern Turkey, we encounter another architectural mystery that has revolutionized our understanding of early human civilization. Göbekli Tepe, whose name translates to Potbelly Hill in Turkish, represents what may be the world's oldest known temple complex, predating Stonehenge by roughly 6,000 years and the pyramids of Egypt by 7,000 years. Carbon dating of organic material found at the site consistently places its construction between 9,500 and 8,000 BCE, during a period when mainstream archaeology suggests humans were just beginning to transition from hunter-gatherer societies to settled agricultural communities. The implications of Göbekli Tepe's age cannot be overstated. If the dating is accurate, it means that complex religious architecture, sophisticated stone carving, and large-scale organized construction projects existed before the development of agriculture, pottery, writing, or metallurgy. This challenges fundamental assumptions about how human civilization developed and suggests that our ancestors were capable of far more sophisticated social organization and technical achievement than previously believed. The site consists of several circular enclosures, each containing massive T-shaped limestone pillars that stand up to 18 feet tall and weigh as much as 50 tons. These pillars are carved with intricate reliefs depicting animals, humans, and abstract symbols. The animal carvings are particularly remarkable for their artistic sophistication and attention to detail, featuring species including lions, boars, foxes, snakes, vultures, and various birds. The level of artistry demonstrated in these carvings rivals work produced thousands of years later, during periods we consider to represent the height of ancient artistic achievement. Perhaps most intriguingly, the pillars appear to represent stylized human figures, complete with arms, hands, and clothing details carved in relief. Some pillars feature belts, loincloths, and jewelry, suggesting that the people who created Göbekli Tepe had developed complex systems of personal adornment and social status differentiation far earlier than previously thought possible. The positioning of the pillars within each enclosure appears to follow consistent patterns, suggesting sophisticated understanding of architectural planning and symbolic arrangement. The construction of Göbekli Tepe would have required the coordinated effort of hundreds, possibly thousands of workers over extended periods. Quarrying, transporting, and erecting the massive pillars would have demanded advanced knowledge of stoneworking techniques, engineering principles, and project management. The site's builders would have needed specialized tools for cutting and shaping limestone, methods for moving multi-ton blocks across rough terrain, and techniques for precisely positioning and stabilizing the pillars within their circular arrangements. Even more mysterious is the fact that Göbekli Tepe appears to have been deliberately buried under tons of earth around 8,000 BCE, preserving it almost perfectly for over 10,000 years. The reason for this deliberate concealment remains unknown, but it suggests that the site's creators or their successors made a conscious decision to hide this remarkable complex from future generations. Some researchers speculate that environmental changes, religious shifts, or cultural transformations may have motivated this extraordinary act of architectural burial. Recent excavations using ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques suggest that what has been uncovered so far represents only a small fraction of the overall site. Geomagnetic surveys indicate the presence of at least 20 additional circular enclosures still buried beneath the surface, some potentially even larger and more elaborate than those already excavated. If these estimates prove accurate, Göbekli Tepe may represent an ancient complex of unprecedented size and sophistication. The discovery and ongoing excavation of Göbekli Tepe has forced archaeologists to reconsider fundamental assumptions about the development of human civilization. The traditional narrative suggested that complex architecture, organized religion, and specialized craftsmanship developed only after the establishment of agricultural settlements and the accumulation of agricultural surplus. Göbekli Tepe demonstrates that sophisticated religious and architectural complexes existed before agriculture, suggesting that organized religion may have actually preceded and potentially motivated the development of settled farming communities. From the ancient temples of Turkey, our journey takes us to modern-day China, where satellite imagery and careful investigation have revealed the existence of massive pyramid structures that have remained largely hidden from the outside world for decades. The most prominent of these is known as the White Pyramid, located in the Shanxi province of central China, roughly 40 miles southwest of the city of Xi'an. This structure, if fully confirmed and accurately measured, would represent one of the largest pyramids ever constructed anywhere on Earth. The White Pyramid's existence first came to widespread international attention through reports from Allied pilots flying over China during World War II. Colonel Maurice Sheehan, writing for the New York Times in 1947, described seeing an enormous white pyramid that dwarfed the famous pyramids of Egypt. According to his account, the structure appeared to be approximately 1,000 feet tall, with a base measuring roughly 1,500 feet on each side, making it significantly larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. However, accessing and studying the White Pyramid has proven extremely difficult due to Chinese government restrictions on foreign archaeological investigation in the region. The area around Xi'an contains numerous archaeological sites of enormous cultural and historical significance to China, including the famous Terracotta Army associated with the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang. Chinese authorities have been reluctant to allow extensive foreign investigation of pyramid structures in the region, citing concerns about cultural heritage protection and archaeological site preservation. What makes the White Pyramid particularly intriguing is its apparent age and the questions it raises about early Chinese civilization and construction capabilities. While definitive dating has not been possible due to access restrictions, the pyramid's weathered appearance and the vegetation growing on its sides suggest considerable antiquity. Some researchers speculate that it could date back thousands of years, potentially predating many of the better-known pyramid structures found in Egypt and Central America. The construction techniques used to build the White Pyramid remain largely unknown due to limited access for detailed archaeological investigation. However, aerial photography and satellite imagery suggest that it was built using earthen construction methods rather than the large stone blocks characteristic of Egyptian pyramids. This would be consistent with ancient Chinese architectural traditions, which often employed rammed earth and other earthen construction techniques for major building projects. If the reported dimensions of the White Pyramid are accurate, its construction would have required moving and shaping millions of cubic feet of earth and building materials. Such a project would have demanded enormous labor forces, sophisticated organizational systems, and advanced engineering knowledge to ensure structural stability and prevent erosion over time. The pyramid's survival in recognizable form for potentially thousands of years demonstrates remarkable understanding of construction principles and material science. The cultural and religious significance of the White Pyramid remains largely speculative due to the limited information available about its origins and purpose. Chinese pyramid structures were often associated with imperial burials and ancestral worship, serving as eternal resting places for emperors and other significant figures. The White Pyramid's enormous size suggests that it may have been constructed for an individual of exceptional importance in ancient Chinese history, possibly a ruler or religious figure whose identity has been lost to time. Recent satellite imagery analysis has revealed that the White Pyramid is not unique in the region. Numerous other pyramid-like structures of various sizes have been identified in the same general area, suggesting that pyramid construction was a significant architectural tradition in ancient China. Some of these structures appear to be arranged in patterns that may reflect astronomical alignments or other symbolic relationships, indicating sophisticated understanding of landscape planning and sacred geometry. The mystery deepens when we consider the apparent sophistication of some of these Chinese pyramid structures. Advanced imaging techniques have revealed complex internal chamber systems in some pyramids, suggesting elaborate burial complexes or ritual spaces within the structures. The engineering required to create stable internal chambers within massive earthen pyramids would have demanded advanced understanding of structural mechanics and construction techniques. Moving from the hidden pyramids of China to the mysterious underground chambers of eastern China, we encounter the Longyu Caves, a vast system of artificial caverns that represents one of the most puzzling archaeological discoveries in modern Chinese history. Located near the city of Longyu in Zhejiang province, these caves were discovered accidentally in 1992 when local villagers decided to pump water from what they assumed were natural ponds. Instead of shallow water bodies, they uncovered the entrances to enormous underground chambers that had been hidden beneath water for centuries. The Longyu Caves consist of 24 known chambers carved directly from solid siltstone, covering a total area of more than 30,000 square meters and reaching depths of up to 30 meters below ground level. The scale of this excavation is staggering. Researchers estimate that creating these chambers would have required the removal of nearly 1 million cubic meters of stone, a volume of material that would fill hundreds of modern railway cars. The precision and sophistication of the excavation work rivals anything achieved in recorded history. What makes the Longyou Caves particularly mysterious is the complete absence of any historical records describing their construction or purpose. Chinese civilization is renowned for its detailed historical documentation spanning thousands of years, yet no surviving texts make any mention of this massive underground construction project. The caves do not appear in local folklore, historical chronicles, or archaeological records from any historical period. It is as if an enormous engineering project involving the coordinated efforts of thousands of workers was completed in complete secrecy and then forgotten by history. The construction techniques demonstrated in the Longyou Caves reveal remarkable sophistication and planning. The chambers feature precisely carved walls, carefully designed ceiling supports, and intricate systems of pillars and arches that distribute structural loads throughout the underground complex. The walls display consistent tool marks indicating the use of specialized cutting implements, yet no examples of tools capable of creating such marks have been found at the site or described in historical accounts of ancient Chinese construction methods. Perhaps most remarkably, the caves show evidence of sophisticated ventilation and drainage systems. Air circulation throughout the underground complex appears to have been carefully planned to prevent the accumulation of dangerous gases and to maintain breathable air quality in the deepest chambers. Water management systems prevent flooding and moisture accumulation that could damage the carved surfaces or create unsafe conditions for occupants. These engineering features suggest that the caves were designed for long-term human occupation rather than short-term storage or temporary use. The artistic and decorative elements found throughout the Longyou Caves add another layer of mystery to their origins and purpose. Many chambers feature carved reliefs, geometric patterns, and symbolic designs that do not correspond to any known artistic traditions in Chinese history. The style and execution of these decorative elements suggest a highly developed aesthetic sense and sophisticated understanding of artistic principles, yet they appear to belong to no identifiable cultural or historical period. Dating the Longyou Caves has proven extremely challenging due to the absence of organic materials or other datable artifacts within the chambers. The caves were flooded for an unknown period before their modern discovery, and any artifacts or organic materials that might have provided chronological clues were likely destroyed by centuries of water immersion. Geological analysis of the carved surfaces and structural modifications suggests considerable antiquity, but precise dating remains elusive. The purpose of the Longyou Caves remains completely unknown. Various theories have been proposed, including use as underground storage facilities, religious or ceremonial spaces, military installations, or residential complexes. However, none of these theories adequately explains the enormous scale of the project, the sophisticated engineering involved, or the complete absence of historical documentation. The chambers contain no obvious features that would clearly indicate their intended function, such as altars, weapon storage systems, residential amenities, or commercial facilities. Recent investigations using advanced archaeological techniques have revealed additional mysteries within the cave system. Ground-penetrating radar suggests the existence of additional chambers and passages that have not yet been accessed, indicating that the known caves may represent only a portion of a much larger underground complex. Some sealed chambers appear to contain structures or artifacts that could provide crucial clues about the cave's origins and purpose, but accessing these areas safely requires careful planning and specialized equipment. From the underground mysteries of China, our journey takes us to Western India, where we encounter one of the most audacious architectural achievements in recorded history. The Kailasa Temple at Ellora represents the largest rock-cut temple in the world and stands as testament to human ambition and capability that defies conventional understanding of ancient construction methods. Unlike most temples that are built up from foundations using separate stones or building blocks, the entire Kailasa temple was carved downward and inward from a single massive rock formation. The scale of this achievement is almost impossible to comprehend. The temple complex measures approximately 164 feet long, 109 feet wide, and 98 feet high, making it larger than the Parthenon in Athens, But these dimensions only begin to tell the story of this extraordinary monument. The temple was created by removing an estimated 400,000 tons of rock from the original cliff face, essentially carving away everything that was not part of the intended structure. This represents one of the largest excavation projects undertaken in the ancient world, requiring precision and planning that challenges our understanding of ancient capabilities. What makes the Kailasa Temple particularly remarkable is that the entire structure, including its intricate carvings, sculptures, and architectural details, was carved from the top down. Ancient craftsmen began at the summit of the rock formation and worked their way down, carefully removing stone to reveal the temple's complex architectural features. This top-down approach meant that any mistakes would be permanent and irreversible. There was no possibility of adding material to correct errors or modify designs during construction. The precision demonstrated throughout the temple complex is extraordinary. The main shrine, subsidiary temples, courtyards, and connecting passages all maintain perfect structural relationships despite being carved from solid rock. The temple features multiple stories, elaborate pillared halls, and intricate sculptural programs that rival the finest examples of Indian temple art. The level of planning required to visualize and execute such a complex three-dimensional design while working entirely through subtraction of material represents an intellectual and artistic achievement of the highest order. The sculptural program of the Kailasa Temple includes some of the finest examples of medieval Indian art, featuring elaborate reliefs depicting scenes from Hindu mythology, particularly stories associated with Lord Shiva. The famous sculpture of Ravana attempting to lift Mount Kailasa demonstrates extraordinary artistic skill and dramatic composition. These sculptural elements were not added to the temple after its architectural completion. They were carved as integral parts of the rock-cutting process, requiring artists to envision their final appearance while working through multiple stages of stone removal. Traditional dating places the construction of the Kailasa Temple in the 8th century CE during the reign of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. However, some researchers question whether such an enormous and sophisticated project could have been completed during the time frame suggested by conventional chronology. The temple shows no evidence of evolutionary development or experimental phases that we might expect from such an ambitious first attempt at large-scale rock-cut architecture. Instead, it appears to represent a fully mature architectural tradition, suggesting the possibility of earlier precedents or a longer development period than currently acknowledged. The tools and techniques used to carve the Kailasa Temple remain poorly understood. Creating smooth, precise surfaces on hard volcanic rock would have required specialized cutting implements and systematic approaches to stone removal. The temple's builders would have needed methods for removing enormous quantities of waste rock, systems for maintaining structural stability during excavation, and techniques for achieving the precise tolerances evident throughout the complex. Yet no comprehensive archaeological investigation has identified the specific tools or methods used in the temple's construction. The logistics of the Kailasa Temple project would have been staggering. Removing 400,000 tons of rock would have required the coordinated efforts of thousands of workers over extended periods. The project would have needed sophisticated organizational systems to coordinate different teams working simultaneously on various aspects of the excavation, quality control systems to maintain consistent standards throughout the complex, and supply chains to provide food, tools, and other necessities for the massive workforce. Recent archaeological investigations have revealed additional mysteries surrounding the Kailasa Temple. Advanced imaging techniques have identified sealed chambers and passages within the temple complex that have never been explored. Some of these spaces appear to contain additional sculptural or architectural features that could provide new insights into the temple's construction and purpose. However, accessing these sealed areas without damaging the existing structure presents significant technical challenges. Our architectural journey continues to ancient Egypt, where we encounter one of that civilization's greatest mysteries, the unfinished obelisk of Aswan. Located in the granite quarries of Aswan in southern Egypt, this massive monument represents what would have been the largest obelisk ever created, yet it was abandoned in the quarry before completion. The circumstances surrounding its abandonment and the techniques intended for its completion continue to puzzle archaeologists and engineers. The unfinished obelisk measures approximately 137 feet in length and would have weighed an estimated 1,200 tons when completed, nearly 3 times heavier than any obelisk that was successfully erected in ancient Egypt. The monument was carved from red granite, one of the hardest stones worked by ancient Egyptian craftsmen, using techniques that remain partially mysterious despite extensive archaeological investigation. The precision and scale of the work demonstrate remarkable ambition and technical capability on the part of ancient Egyptian stoneworkers. The obelisk was apparently abandoned due to cracks that developed in the granite during the carving process. These flaws would have compromised the structural integrity of the finished monument, making it unsuitable for erection as a standing obelisk. However, the decision to abandon such an enormous project after investing tremendous resources in its creation raises questions about ancient Egyptian project management and decision-making processes. Modern engineering projects of similar scale typically include extensive materials testing and quality control measures to identify potential problems before significant resources are committed. What makes the unfinished obelisk particularly valuable for understanding ancient techniques is that it provides a unique window into Egyptian stoneworking methods. Because the monument was never completed and removed from the quarry, it preserves evidence of the tools and techniques used in ancient granite working that would normally be lost during the finishing and transportation processes. Archaeological investigation of the site has revealed evidence of various cutting and shaping techniques, some of which challenge conventional understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities. The most puzzling aspect of the unfinished obelisk involves the precision cutting evident throughout the monument. The obelisk shows clear evidence of systematic stone removal using techniques that created remarkably smooth and precise surfaces. Some areas display cut marks that appear impossibly precise for the copper and bronze tools conventionally associated with ancient Egyptian stoneworking. The hardness of granite makes it extremely difficult to work using soft metal tools, yet the evidence at Aswan suggests that ancient craftsmen achieved levels of precision that modern stoneworkers would find challenging, even with contemporary diamond cutting equipment. Recent investigations have identified what appear to be drill holes throughout the granite surrounding the unfinished obelisk. These holes are perfectly round and show evidence of systematic drilling techniques that removed granite with remarkable efficiency. The precision and consistency of these holes suggests the use of specialized drilling equipment that does not correspond to any known ancient Egyptian tools. Some researchers have proposed that ancient craftsmen may have used bronze tubes with abrasive compounds to achieve this drilling precision, but experimental attempts to replicate these results using reconstructed ancient techniques have met with limited success. The intended transportation and erection of the unfinished obelisk raises additional engineering questions that remain unresolved. Moving a 200-ton granite monument from the Aswan quarries to its intended destination would have required engineering capabilities that exceed anything demonstrated elsewhere in ancient Egypt. The largest successfully transported obelisks weigh approximately 400 tons, and their movement required enormous ramps, specialized sleds, and hundreds of workers. A monument 3 times heavier would have presented logistical challenges that may have exceeded ancient Egyptian capabilities. The site around the unfinished obelisk contains evidence of extensive quarrying operations that demonstrate the scale and sophistication of ancient Egyptian stoneworking. Multiple quarry sites show evidence of systematic granite extraction using techniques that maximize the yield of useful stone while minimizing waste. The quarry operations appear to have been carefully planned to provide stone for multiple projects simultaneously, suggesting sophisticated understanding of resource management and production planning. From the granite quarries of Egypt, our journey takes us to another legendary site that has captured imaginations for over 2 millennia, the Lost Labyrinth of Egypt, described by ancient historians as one of the most remarkable architectural achievements of the ancient world. Unlike the monuments we can still see and study today, the Egyptian labyrinth appears to have vanished almost completely, leaving behind only tantalizing descriptions and fragmentary archaeological evidence of what may have been the most complex building ever constructed in ancient times. The most detailed ancient description of the labyrinth comes from the Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt in the 5th century BCE and provided a first-hand account of this extraordinary complex. According to Herodotus, the labyrinth surpassed even the pyramids in its magnificence and complexity. He described a vast structure containing thousands of rooms arranged in intricate patterns across multiple levels, with underground chambers that were forbidden to visitors and upper levels that displayed the finest examples of Egyptian art and architecture. Herodotus reported that the labyrinth contained 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground and 1,500 below ground, connected by a maze of passages so complex that visitors required guides to navigate safely through the structure. The building supposedly served multiple functions, including administrative offices for Egypt's various provinces, religious temples dedicated to different deities, and burial chambers for sacred crocodiles. The complexity of the layout was so great that Herodotus claimed it would be impossible for anyone to find their way through the structure without assistance. Other ancient historians and geographers, including Strabo, Pliny the Elder, and Diodorus Siculus, provided additional descriptions of the labyrinth that generally confirmed Herodotus's account while adding their own observations about its scale and purpose. These sources consistently described a building of unprecedented complexity and size, featuring architectural innovations and engineering solutions that were unique in the ancient world. The consensus among ancient sources was that the labyrinth represented the pinnacle of Egyptian architectural achievement. The traditional location of the Lost Labyrinth has been identified with the area around Hawara in the Fayum region of Egypt, near the pyramid of Amenemhat III, a 12th dynasty pharaoh who ruled during the Middle Kingdom period around 1800 BCE. Archaeological investigations in this area have revealed extensive foundation remains and scattered architectural fragments that may represent portions of the original labyrinth complex. However, the scale of these remains falls far short of the massive structure described by ancient historians. Recent archaeological work using ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques has identified extensive underground structures in the Hawara area that were previously unknown. These discoveries suggest the presence of large chambers, connecting passages, and architectural features buried beneath centuries of accumulated sand and debris. The underground structures appear to be far more extensive than surface remains would suggest, potentially confirming ancient descriptions of vast subterranean portions of the labyrinth complex. The mystery of the labyrinth's disappearance raises questions about the durability and construction methods used in ancient Egyptian architecture. While pyramid structures have survived for millennia due to their massive stone construction, the labyrinth may have employed different building techniques that were more susceptible to weathering, earthquakes, or deliberate destruction. Some researchers suggest that the complex may have been built primarily using mud brick construction with stone elements, making it more vulnerable to environmental damage over time. The engineering challenges involved in creating a structure as complex as the labyrinth would have been enormous. Providing adequate lighting, ventilation, and structural support for thousands of interconnected rooms across multiple levels would have required sophisticated understanding of architectural principles and environmental control systems. The maze-like layout described by ancient sources would have required careful planning to ensure that the building remained functional while maintaining its deliberately confusing navigation patterns. Our exploration of architectural mysteries takes us next to the remote Pacific, where the ruins of Nan Madol present one of the most enigmatic and isolated monuments on Earth. Located on the eastern shore of Pohnpei Island in Micronesia, Nan Madol consists of nearly 100 artificial islands constructed from massive basalt blocks and connected by a network of canals. This remarkable complex has earned the nickname Venice of the Pacific due to its unique combination of monumental architecture and water-based transportation systems. The construction of Nan Madol required moving and precisely placing an estimated 250,000 tons of basalt blocks, many weighing several tons each. These massive stones were quarried from sites located across the island of Pohnpei and transported to the Nan Madol site using methods that remain unclear. The absence of large trees suitable for creating substantial rafts or boats makes the transportation of such heavy materials particularly puzzling. Local legends speak of the stones being flown to their positions through magical means, but no practical explanation has been provided for how ancient Micronesians accomplished this remarkable feat of logistics. The basalt blocks used in Nan Madol construction display remarkable uniformity and precision in their cutting and shaping. The stones appear to have been shaped using sophisticated techniques that created interlocking joints and precise fitting between adjacent blocks. The consistency of the stone working throughout the complex suggests standardized tools and methods, yet archaeological investigation has found no evidence of the specialized equipment that would have been required for such precise basalt working. The architectural design of Nan Madol demonstrates sophisticated understanding of marine engineering and environmental conditions. The artificial islands were constructed to withstand the powerful Pacific storms and tidal forces that regularly affect the region. The complex system of seawalls, foundations, and drainage channels shows careful consideration of water management and structural stability in a challenging coastal environment. The longevity of the structures, which have survived centuries of typhoons and earthquakes, testifies to the engineering expertise of their builders. Carbon dating and archaeological investigation suggest that Nan Madol was constructed between approximately 1200 and 1700 CE, making it contemporaneous with the great cathedral building projects of medieval Europe. However, the isolated location of Pohnpei Island raises questions about how such sophisticated engineering and architectural knowledge developed in this remote Pacific setting. The nearest major population centers were thousands of miles away, and there is no evidence of extensive contact with other civilizations that might have provided technical knowledge or inspiration for such an ambitious project. The purpose of Nan Madol appears to have been primarily ceremonial and administrative, serving as the political and religious center of the Saudeleur dynasty that ruled Pohnpei for several centuries. The complex includes residential areas for the ruling elite, ceremonial platforms for religious activities, and burial sites for important individuals. However, the enormous investment of resources required to create Nan Madol seems disproportionate to the relatively small population of Pohnpei Island, raising questions about the economic and social systems that supported such massive construction projects. Recent archaeological investigations have revealed that Nan Madol may be even larger and more complex than previously recognized. Underwater surveys have identified additional structures submerged in the surrounding lagoon, suggesting that rising sea levels may have concealed portions of the original complex. These underwater structures appear to maintain the same architectural characteristics as the visible portions of Nan Madol, including precisely fitted basalt construction and sophisticated engineering design. Our final architectural mystery takes us beneath the waves off the coast of Japan, where the Yonaguni Monument presents one of the most controversial and debated underwater discoveries in modern archaeology. Located near Yonaguni Island in the Ryukyu chain, this massive underwater structure features terraced platforms, carved steps, and geometric shapes that some researchers interpret as evidence of a lost civilization, while others argue that the formations are entirely natural geological features shaped by underwater erosion. The Yonaguni Monument was first discovered in 1987 by diving instructor Kihachiro Arataki, who was searching for new diving sites near Yonaguni Island. The structure lies approximately 25 meters below the surface and consists of massive stone formations that appear to have been shaped and arranged in patterns that resemble architectural features. The monument measures roughly 150 meters long, 40 meters wide, and 27 meters high, making it comparable in size to many ancient temples and ceremonial complexes found on land. The most striking features of the Yonaguni Monument include what appear to be deliberately carved steps, flat platform surfaces, and geometric patterns that seem inconsistent with natural rock formation processes. Some areas of the structure display sharp angles, straight edges, and systematic arrangements that proponents argue could only have been created through human intervention. The monument also features what some interpret as carved faces, symbols, and decorative elements that would indicate sophisticated artistic and architectural traditions. Dating the Yonaguni Monument has proven extremely challenging and controversial. If the structure is indeed artificial, it would have been constructed when the area was above sea level, before rising ocean levels submerged the region. Geological evidence suggests that the area around Yonaguni Island was last above sea level, approximately 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. If the monument proves to be artificial and dates to this period, it would represent one of the oldest architectural achievements known to exist anywhere on Earth. However, many geologists and archaeologists remain skeptical about claims that the Yonaguni Monument represents human construction. They argue that the structure's features can be explained through natural geological processes, including underwater erosion, tectonic activity, and the natural fracturing patterns of sedimentary rock. Critics point out that no clear evidence of human tools, artifacts, or other indicators of ancient human activity have been found at the site, despite extensive underwater investigation. The controversy surrounding the Yonaguni Monument reflects broader debates about the capabilities of ancient civilizations and the evidence required to establish human agency in archaeological discoveries. Proponents argue that the structure's geometric precision and architectural features exceed what natural processes could create, while skeptics maintain that unusual geological formations can sometimes mimic human-made structures without any actual human involvement. The underwater location of the monument makes detailed investigation challenging and limits the types of evidence that can be collected to resolve these debates. Recent investigations using advanced underwater scanning and imaging technologies have provided more detailed documentation of the Yonaguni Monument's features while adding new dimensions to the ongoing debate. High-resolution sonar mapping has revealed additional structural elements and geometric patterns that were not apparent in earlier investigations. Some of these newly documented features appear to strengthen arguments for human construction, while others seem more consistent with natural geological interpretation. The implications of the Yonaguni Monument extend far beyond questions about this single underwater structure. If the monument proves to represent human construction dating to the end of the last ice age, it would provide evidence for sophisticated architectural capabilities existing far earlier than conventional archaeological timelines suggest was possible. Such a discovery would require fundamental revisions to our understanding of human cultural and technological development during the transition from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic periods. As we conclude our journey through these remarkable architectural mysteries, we find ourselves confronting fundamental questions about the capabilities, knowledge, and achievements of our ancestors. From the impossible precision of Baalbek's megalithic blocks to the sophisticated underground complexes of Longyu, from the audacious rock carving of Khalasa Temple to the mysterious disappearance of Egypt's legendary labyrinth, these monuments challenge our understanding of what ancient peoples could accomplish with the tools and knowledge supposedly available to them. The common threads running through these architectural enigmas are striking. They all involve construction projects of extraordinary scale and ambition that seem to exceed the capabilities we typically associate with their respective time periods and civilizations. They demonstrate levels of precision, planning, and technical sophistication that often rival or exceed modern achievements in similar fields. Perhaps most puzzling of all, many appear to have been abandoned, concealed, or lost to history, despite representing enormous investments of resources and human effort. These architectural mysteries serve as humbling reminders that human achievement in the past may have reached heights that we are only beginning to recognize and understand. They suggest that our ancestors possessed knowledge, capabilities, and motivations that we have yet to fully comprehend, and they challenge us to approach the study of ancient civilizations with greater openness to possibilities that may not fit comfortably within our current understanding of historical development and human capability. The quest to understand these architectural enigmas continues, driven by advances in archaeological techniques, dating methods, and engineering analysis that may eventually provide more definitive answers to the questions they raise. Until then, they stand as silent testimony to human ambition and achievement, challenging us to expand our understanding of what our species has accomplished throughout its long and remarkable history. While massive stone monuments and architectural marvels provide the most visually striking evidence of ancient mysteries, some of the most profound enigmas left by our ancestors exist in far more portable forms. Maps that depict impossible knowledge, texts written in languages that defy translation, and codes that have resisted centuries of cryptographic analysis represent a different category of mystery altogether. These documents and inscriptions challenge our understanding not just of what ancient peoples could build, but of what they knew, how they communicated, and what knowledge they considered important enough to preserve for future generations. The world of mysterious texts and maps presents unique challenges for researchers. Unlike architectural monuments that can be measured, analyzed, and dated through physical examination, written mysteries often exist as copies of copies, translations of translations, or fragments preserved through accident rather than design. The materials on which they were created have often deteriorated, the contexts in which they were produced have been lost, and the cultural frameworks necessary to understand their meaning have disappeared into the mists of time. What makes these textual mysteries particularly compelling is their suggestion that ancient peoples possessed knowledge that seems impossible given our understanding of their technological capabilities and geographical awareness. Maps that accurately depict continents unknown to their supposed creators, texts that describe technologies that wouldn't be invented for centuries, and codes that incorporate mathematical and linguistic concepts far ahead of their time, all point to possibilities that challenge conventional historical narratives. The study of mysterious texts also reveals the fragile nature of human knowledge and communication. Languages disappear, writing systems are forgotten, and the keys to understanding entire civilizations can be lost in a single generation. The mysterious documents we'll explore serve as stark reminders that much of what ancient peoples knew may have been lost forever, leaving us with tantalizing glimpses of knowledge systems we can no longer fully comprehend. Our journey through these textual enigmas begins with one of the most controversial maps in existence, a document that has sparked debates among historians, geographers, and archaeologists for nearly 5 centuries. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, presents a view of the world that includes geographical details that should have been impossible for anyone to know at that time in history. Piri Reis was a celebrated Ottoman naval commander and cartographer who compiled his famous map during the height of the Ottoman Empire's naval power. The map was discovered in 1929 in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, where it had remained largely unknown to the outside world for over 4 centuries. What immediately struck researchers about the map was not just its age, but the extraordinary accuracy of its geographical depictions of regions that were supposedly unknown to 16th century cartographers. The most startling feature of the Piri Reis map is its detailed and remarkably accurate depiction of the eastern coast of South America. The map shows the coastline of Brazil and Argentina with a precision that rivals modern cartographic efforts, including geographical features, river mouths, and coastal configurations that were supposedly unknown to European explorers in 1513. Even more remarkable is the map's extension southward, showing what appears to be the northern coastline of Antarctica with remarkable accuracy. The Antarctic depiction presents the most significant mystery of the Piri Reis map. Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820, more than 3 centuries after the map was created. Moreover, the map appears to show the coastline of Antarctica as it would appear without its covering of ice, depicting geographical features that have been buried under ice sheets for thousands of years. Modern seismic and radar mapping of the Antarctic continent has confirmed that the underlying rock formations beneath the ice correspond closely to the coastline depicted in the Piri Reis map. The implications of this accuracy are staggering. If the map truly depicts the ice-free coastline of Antarctica, it suggests that whoever provided the source information for Piri Reis had knowledge of Antarctic geography from a time when the continent was not covered by ice. Geological evidence indicates that Antarctica was last ice-free approximately 6,000 to 15,000 years ago, long before any known civilization possessed the navigational capabilities necessary to reach and map such a remote region. Piri Reis himself provided some clues about his sources in notes written on the map itself. He claimed to have compiled the map from approximately 20 different source maps, some dating back centuries, and others acquired from captured Spanish and Portuguese navigators. The admiral specifically mentioned using maps captured from Christopher Columbus's expeditions and other contemporary explorations, but he also referenced much older source materials whose origins he did not specify. The mathematical projection used in the Piri Reis map presents additional mysteries. The map appears to use a sophisticated mathematical projection that accurately represents the spherical Earth on a flat surface, accounting for the curvature of the planet in ways that demonstrate advanced understanding of mathematical cartography. This level of mathematical sophistication was supposedly not available to 16th century map makers, yet the Piri Reis map demonstrates mathematical precision that rivals modern cartographic methods. Recent computer analysis of the Piri Reis map has revealed additional layers of sophistication that were not apparent to earlier researchers. When the map's projection is analyzed using modern mathematical methods, it appears to be centered on a point that provides optimal accuracy for depicting both the Atlantic and Pacific regions simultaneously. This suggests that whoever created the original source materials had access to global geographical knowledge and the mathematical skills necessary to optimize map projections for worldwide accuracy. The accuracy of longitude measurements in the Piri Reis map presents another significant puzzle. Determining longitude accurately was one of the greatest challenges in historical navigation and cartography, requiring precise timekeeping instruments that were not developed until the 18th century. Yet the Piri Reis map shows longitude relationships between different geographical features with remarkable accuracy, suggesting access to navigational techniques or instruments that were supposedly not available in the early 16th century. The mystery deepens when we consider the additional geographical features depicted in the map. Beyond its accurate portrayal of South American and Antarctic coastlines, the map includes depictions of Atlantic islands, African coastal features, and other geographical elements that demonstrate knowledge extending far beyond what any single expedition or navigator could have acquired through direct exploration. The comprehensive nature of the geographical knowledge represented in the map suggests access to a coordinated, systematic mapping effort that spanned vast geographical areas. Moving from cartographic mysteries to textual enigmas, we encounter the Rohank Codex, a mysterious manuscript that has defied every attempt at translation, despite nearly 2 centuries of scholarly investigation. Discovered in the early 19th century in the Library of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, the Rohank Codex consists of 448 pages, covered with an unknown script, accompanied by 87 detailed illustrations that provide tantalizing clues about the manuscript's content and origins. The Rohank Codex takes its name from the town of Rohank, now Recknitz, Austria, where it was allegedly discovered, though the exact circumstances of its finding remain unclear. The manuscript first came to scholarly attention in 1838, when it was donated to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences by Count Gustav Battiani, who claimed to have acquired it from his family's library. However, no records exist of the manuscript prior to its donation, leaving questions about its provenance and authenticity. The script used in the Rohank Codex appears to be entirely unique, showing no clear relationship to any known writing system. The text consists of approximately 4,500 different symbols or characters, far more than would be expected for an alphabetic writing system, but consistent with a logographic system, where individual symbols represent words or concepts rather than sounds. The symbols range from simple geometric forms to complex composite characters that suggest sophisticated linguistic and artistic traditions. The illustrations throughout the Rohank Codex provide the most accessible clues about its potential content and cultural origins. The images depict religious scenes that appear to blend Christian, Islamic, and possibly Hindu or Buddhist iconography. Many illustrations show figures that could be interpreted as religious leaders, military commanders, or royal personages, often accompanied by symbols and architectural elements that don't clearly correspond to any specific cultural tradition. Some illustrations in the Rohank Codex appear to depict historical events or legendary narratives, including what seem to be battle scenes, religious ceremonies, and courtly gatherings. The artistic style of the illustrations shows sophisticated understanding of perspective, composition, and symbolic representation, suggesting that the manuscript was produced by skilled artists working within an established cultural tradition. However, the specific cultural context remains completely mysterious. The linguistic analysis of the Rohank Codex has yielded few definitive results despite extensive investigation by cryptographers, linguists, and computer scientists. Statistical analysis of character frequency and distribution patterns suggests that the text represents a genuine language rather than random symbols or deliberate nonsense. However, the language shows no clear relationship to any known linguistic family, leading some researchers to propose that it may represent a completely extinct language or an artificial language created for specific purposes. Multiple theories have been proposed regarding the origins and purpose of the Rohank Codex. Some researchers suggest it may be a religious text from an unknown Christian sect, pointing to apparent Christian symbolism in many of the illustrations. Others propose that it could be a historical chronicle from a lost civilization or culture, based on the apparent narrative structure of the text and illustrations. More skeptical researchers have suggested that the manuscript could be an 18th or 19th century hoax, created to deceive scholars or collectors. Computer-assisted analysis of the Rohank Codex has revealed interesting patterns in the text structure that support the hypothesis that it represents a genuine language. The distribution of symbols follows patterns consistent with natural languages, including appropriate frequency distributions for what appear to be common and rare words. The text also shows evidence of grammatical structure, with certain symbol combinations appearing in patterns that suggest consistent linguistic rules. Recent advances in machine learning and artificial intelligence have opened new possibilities for analyzing the Rohank Codex. Researchers have applied neural networks and other AI techniques to identify patterns in the text that might not be apparent to human analysis. While these efforts have not yet produced a breakthrough in translation, they have confirmed that the manuscript shows linguistic patterns consistent with natural human languages rather than random symbol generation. From the mysteries of unknown languages, we turn to the puzzle of the Copper Scroll, one of the most intriguing documents discovered among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. Unlike the other Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written on parchment or papyrus, the Copper Scroll was engraved on thin sheets of copper, creating a document that has survived nearly 2,000 years in remarkable condition, while presenting unique challenges for translation and interpretation. The Copper Scroll was discovered in 1952 in Cave 3 at Qumran, the same region where the other Dead Sea Scrolls were found. However, the copper document stood out immediately from the other manuscripts due to its unusual material and the difficulty of unrolling the heavily oxidized metal sheets without destroying them. It took researchers 4 years to develop techniques for safely opening the scroll, which was eventually accomplished by cutting it into strips that could be individually studied and photographed. Once opened and translated, the Copper Scroll revealed itself to be unlike any other ancient document ever discovered. Rather than containing religious texts, historical narratives, or literary works, the scroll appears to be an inventory of hidden treasure, listing dozens of locations where enormous quantities of gold, silver, and other valuables were supposedly buried or hidden. The treasure descriptions are remarkably specific, providing detailed directions to cache sites and precise quantities of buried wealth. The scale of wealth described in the Copper Scroll is almost impossible to comprehend. The document lists a total of 64 different treasure sites containing quantities of gold and silver that would represent incalculable wealth in modern terms. Conservative estimates suggest that the total treasure described in the scroll would weigh over 200 tons, representing more precious metal than was available in the entire ancient world, according to most historical estimates of metal production and availability. The geographical references in the Copper Scroll present significant challenges for interpretation. Many of the location descriptions refer to landmarks, buildings, and geographical features that cannot be definitively identified with known archaeological sites. The directions often rely on references that would have been meaningful to contemporary readers, but are obscure or incomprehensible to modern researchers. Some locations can be tentatively identified with sites in and around Jerusalem, but many remain completely mysterious. The purpose and origins of the Copper Scroll have been debated extensively among scholars. Some researchers believe it represents a genuine inventory of temple treasure hidden during the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, when Jewish defenders may have attempted to preserve valuable religious artifacts and funds by burying them in secret locations. This theory would explain the enormous quantities of wealth described and the apparent urgency reflected in the document's creation. Alternative theories suggest that the Copper Scroll may be a work of fiction or fantasy, describing imaginary treasures rather than real buried wealth. Proponents of this view point to the implausibly large quantities of treasure described and the difficulty of verifying any of the geographical references. They argue that the scroll may have been created as a literary work or as part of a religious or mystical tradition that used treasure imagery symbolically rather than literally. The language and writing style of the Copper Scroll differ significantly from the other Dead Sea Scrolls, suggesting different authorship and possibly different origins. The Hebrew used in the Copper Scroll includes vocabulary and grammatical forms that are unique among ancient Hebrew texts, leading some researchers to propose that it may have been written by someone whose primary language was not Hebrew or who was working within a specialized linguistic tradition. Recent archaeological efforts to locate sites described in the Copper Scroll have yielded mixed results. While some locations mentioned in the scroll have been tentatively identified with known archaeological sites, no significant treasure discoveries have been made despite extensive searching. Some researchers argue that the treasure may have been recovered in ancient times, or that the hiding places have been altered beyond recognition by 2 millennia of geological and human activity. The physical characteristics of the copper scroll itself present interesting questions about ancient metalworking and document preservation techniques. The use of copper as a writing medium was extremely unusual in the ancient world, where parchment and papyrus were the standard materials for important documents. The choice of copper suggests that the document's creators considered its preservation crucial and were willing to invest considerable resources in ensuring its survival over time. Our exploration of mysterious texts continues with perhaps the most famous undeciphered manuscript in existence, the Voynich manuscript. This enigmatic 15th century document has frustrated cryptographers, linguists, and historians for over a century, earning a reputation as the world's most mysterious book. Named after Wilfrid Voynich, the book dealer who acquired it in 1912, the manuscript presents a unique combination of unknown text and bizarre illustrations that have defied every attempt at interpretation. The Voynich manuscript consists of approximately 240 pages of vellum covered with text, written in a completely unknown script. The writing appears to flow naturally and shows characteristics consistent with genuine language, including apparent word structures, paragraph divisions, and what seem to be titles and captions for the numerous illustrations throughout the text. However, the language shows no relationship to any known writing system and has resisted all attempts at translation, despite being subjected to the most sophisticated cryptographic analysis available. The illustrations in the Voynich manuscript are perhaps even more mysterious than the text itself. The images depict plants that correspond to no known species, astronomical diagrams that don't match any recognized star patterns or cosmological systems, and elaborate drawings of nude women in pools of green liquid connected by intricate plumbing systems. Additional sections include what appear to be pharmaceutical or alchemical recipes, zodiacal charts, and biological diagrams that defy identification with known scientific or medical traditions. The botanical section of the Voynich manuscript, which comprises the largest portion of the text, shows detailed drawings of plants accompanied by blocks of text that presumably describe their properties or uses. However, none of the illustrated plants can be identified with known species, despite careful comparison with historical botanical texts and modern plant identification resources. The plants show morphological features that seem to combine characteristics from different plant families in ways that don't occur in nature. The astronomical and cosmological diagrams in the Voynich manuscript present equally puzzling imagery. The charts show star patterns and celestial configurations that don't correspond to any known astronomical system. Some pages feature elaborate circular diagrams that might represent calendar systems or astrological charts, but their specific meaning remains completely opaque. The astronomical section includes images of what appear to be celestial bodies or astronomical instruments that don't match any known historical examples. Perhaps the most bizarre section of the Voynich manuscript features detailed drawings of nude women bathing in pools of green liquid that are connected by an elaborate network of tubes and pipes. The women appear to be emerging from or submerging in the liquid, and many wear unusual headdresses or crowns. The purpose of these images and their relationship to the accompanying text remains completely mysterious, though some researchers have speculated that they may represent alchemical, medical, or spiritual processes. The text of the Voynich manuscript shows statistical characteristics that are consistent with natural human language. Computer analysis has revealed patterns in character frequency, word length distribution, and grammatical structure that suggest genuine linguistic content rather than random symbols or encrypted text. However, the language shows unique characteristics that set it apart from all known language families, leading some researchers to speculate that it may represent a completely artificial language or a natural language that has been extinct for centuries. Numerous attempts have been made to identify the origins and purpose of the Voynich manuscript. Some researchers have proposed that it represents a medieval European alchemical or medical text written in a cipher or unknown language. Others have suggested that it may be the work of a 13th century scholar like Roger Bacon, who was known for his interests in natural philosophy and possibly cryptographic writing. More exotic theories have proposed that the manuscript may represent knowledge from a lost civilization or even extraterrestrial origins. Carbon dating and other scientific analysis of the Voynich manuscript have confirmed that the vellum dates to the early 15th century, placing its creation in the period between 1404 and 1438 CE. The ink analysis is consistent with materials available during this period, confirming that the manuscript is genuinely medieval rather than a modern hoax. However, this dating raises additional questions about how such a mysterious document could have been created during a period when European scholarly traditions were relatively well documented. Recent computer-assisted analysis using artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques has provided new insights into the structure and possible meaning of the Voynich manuscript. Some algorithms have identified patterns that suggest the text may be written in a natural language that has been encrypted or disguised using systematic methods. However, these analyses have not yet produced breakthrough translations, and the manuscript remains as mysterious as ever. The mystery of the Voynich manuscript extends beyond questions of language and content to fundamental issues about knowledge preservation and transmission in medieval Europe. If the manuscript represents genuine knowledge of botanical, astronomical, or medical traditions, it suggests the existence of intellectual traditions that were completely outside the mainstream European scholarly system. The survival of such a mysterious document raises questions about what other knowledge may have existed in medieval Europe that was never integrated into conventional scholarly traditions. Our journey through textual mysteries takes us next to one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the modern era, the Dead Sea Scrolls. While these ancient manuscripts have been successfully translated and have provided unprecedented insights into ancient Jewish religious and cultural traditions, they also present mysteries that continue to puzzle researchers. The circumstances of their preservation, the identity of their authors, and the full extent of their contents raise questions that extend far beyond their textual content. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered beginning in 1947, when Bedouin shepherds exploring caves near the ancient settlement of Qumran found jars containing remarkably well-preserved manuscript fragments. Over the following decade, archaeologists and local searchers discovered additional scroll fragments in 11 different caves, eventually yielding nearly 1,000 different manuscript texts, representing the largest collection of ancient Jewish documents ever found. The preservation of the Dead Sea Scrolls represents an almost miraculous survival of ancient knowledge. The dry climate and sealed cave environment created ideal conditions for preserving organic materials that would normally decompose within decades or centuries. Many of the scrolls survived in remarkable condition, with text that remains clearly legible after nearly 2,000 years. This exceptional preservation has provided modern scholars with direct access to ancient texts in their original languages and scripts. The content of the Dead Sea Scrolls includes biblical texts that are centuries older than any previously known manuscripts, providing crucial insights into the development and transmission of Jewish and Christian scriptures. The scrolls contain portions of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, often showing textual variations that illuminate how these sacred texts evolved over time. Some scrolls preserve biblical texts that differ significantly from later standardized versions, suggesting that ancient religious traditions were more diverse and fluid than previously understood. Beyond biblical texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls include numerous sectarian documents that provide unprecedented insights into the beliefs and practices of the Qumran community. These texts describe elaborate systems of religious law, apocalyptic prophecies, and community regulations that reveal the existence of Jewish religious movements that differed dramatically from mainstream Judaism. The sectarian documents suggest that ancient Jewish religious thought was far more diverse and complex than historical sources had previously indicated. The identity of the community that created and preserved the Dead Sea Scrolls remains a subject of ongoing scholarly debate. Most researchers identify the Qumran community with the Essenes, a Jewish religious sect described by ancient historians like Josephus and Philo. However, the sectarian documents found at Qumran describe beliefs and practices that don't align perfectly with ancient descriptions of Essene theology, leaving questions about the precise identity and characteristics of the scroll-producing community. The technological and intellectual sophistication revealed in the Dead Sea Scrolls challenges assumptions about ancient Jewish scholarly capabilities. The scrolls demonstrate advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, calendar systems, and textual scholarship that rivals the achievements of contemporary Greek and Roman intellectual traditions. Some texts include complex mathematical calculations, detailed astronomical observations, and sophisticated interpretive methods that suggest highly developed educational and scholarly systems. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Dead Sea Scrolls is their apparent anticipation of future discoveries and scholarly methods. Some texts appear to predict that their contents would be hidden and later rediscovered by future generations who would have the knowledge and tools necessary to understand their full significance. This prophetic element adds a mystical dimension to the scrolls that extends beyond their historical and religious importance. The dating of the Dead Sea Scrolls spans several centuries, with the oldest fragments dating to approximately 300 BCE and the most recent dating to around 100 CE. This time span encompasses crucial periods in Jewish history, including the Maccabean Revolt, the Roman occupation of Palestine, and the emergence of early Christianity. The scrolls provide contemporary perspectives on these pivotal historical events that often differ significantly from accounts preserved in other historical sources. Recent advances in digital imaging and text analysis have revealed previously hidden content in many Dead Sea Scroll fragments. Multispectral imaging techniques can detect ink traces that are invisible to conventional photography, allowing researchers to read text from severely damaged or faded fragments. These technological advances continue to yield new textual discoveries and have revealed that the total content of the scrolls may be significantly larger than previously estimated. From the religious mysteries of the Dead Sea Scrolls, we turn to the puzzle of the Shugborough inscription, a cryptographic mystery that has challenged codebreakers for over 2 centuries. Located on an 18th century monument in the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, England, this brief inscription has attracted attention from amateur and professional cryptographers, including officials from British intelligence services, yet its meaning remains completely unknown. The Shugborough inscription consists of 10 letters carved in stone, Duos Vavem. These letters are arranged beneath a carved relief depicting the shepherds from Nicolas Poussin's famous painting, Et in Arcadia Ego. The monument was erected sometime between 1748 and 1763 by Thomas Anson, whose family owned the Shugborough estate, but no record exists of the inscription's intended meaning or the identity of whoever composed it. The artistic context of the Shugborough inscription adds layers of mystery to its cryptographic puzzle. The relief carving reproduces Poussin's painting with some modifications, including the reversal of the image as if viewed in a mirror. Poussin's original painting depicts shepherds discovering a tomb inscribed with the Latin phrase, Et in Arcadia Ego, even in Arcadia I am, a meditation on mortality that was popular in 17th and 18th century European art. The choice to accompany this mortality-themed artwork with a mysterious code suggests that the inscription may deal with themes of death, remembrance, or hidden knowledge. Numerous attempts have been made to decipher the Shugborough inscription using various cryptographic approaches. Some researchers have proposed that the letters represent the initial letters of a Latin phrase or English sentence that would reveal the monument's meaning. Others have suggested more complex cipher systems, including numerical codes, religious references, or connections to secret societies. Despite extensive analysis, no proposed solution has gained general acceptance among researchers. The historical context of the Shugborough inscription places it within a period when cryptographic puzzles and coded messages were popular among educated European elites. The 18th century saw widespread interest in secret societies, hermetic traditions, and encoded communications, particularly among members of organizations like the Freemasons. Some researchers have proposed that the Shugborough inscription may be connected to Masonic traditions or other secret society activities, though no definitive evidence supports this connection. The geographical and cultural setting of Shugborough Hall during the inscription's creation provides additional clues about its possible origins and meaning. The Anson family were prominent members of British society with connections to political, military, and intellectual circles. Thomas Anson was associated with various cultural and scholarly pursuits, and his brother George Anson was a famous naval commander whose voyages brought him into contact with diverse cultures and knowledge traditions. These connections suggest that the inscription may reflect esoteric knowledge or cultural influences that extended beyond conventional 18th century British intellectual traditions. computer-assisted analysis of the Shugborough inscription has applied modern cryptographic techniques to the centuries-old puzzle. Statistical analysis of letter frequency and patterns has been used to test various decryption hypotheses, while databases of historical texts have been searched for potential phrase matches. However, the brevity of the inscription limits the effectiveness of many modern cryptographic techniques, which typically require larger amounts of text to identify meaningful patterns. The enduring mystery of the Shugborough inscription has made it a subject of popular speculation and amateur cryptographic investigation. Numerous individuals have proposed solutions ranging from simple acronyms to complex theological or philosophical statements. However, the lack of additional context or confirmation mechanisms makes it virtually impossible to verify the accuracy of any proposed solution, leaving the inscription as mysterious today as it was when first carved over 2 centuries ago. Our exploration of mysterious texts concludes with the enigmatic Rongorongo script of Easter Island, one of the most isolated inhabited islands in the Pacific Ocean. This unique writing system represents one of only a few independent inventions of writing in human history, yet its meaning has been completely lost, leaving modern researchers with dozens of wooden tablets covered in intricate symbols that no one can read. Rongorongo tablets were first reported to European attention in the 1860s, when French missionary Eugene A. Rode arrived on Easter Island and noted that nearly every house contained wooden tablets or staffs covered with hieroglyphic characters. However, by the time serious scholarly interest in the script developed, the knowledge of how to read Rongorongo had already been lost. The dramatic population decline on Easter Island during the 19th century, caused by disease and slave raids, had eliminated virtually all of the island's traditional cultural knowledge, including the ability to interpret the mysterious script. The Rongorongo symbols are carved into wooden tablets using small obsidian or shark-tooth implements that created distinctive grooves in the wood surface. The symbols themselves are remarkably sophisticated, featuring human figures, animals, plants, geometric shapes, and abstract forms that suggest a complex symbolic system. The symbols are arranged in lines that follow a unique reading pattern called reverse boustrophedon, where alternate lines are read in opposite directions, and the symbols in every other line are inverted. Approximately 25 genuine Rongorongo artifacts survive today, preserved in museums and private collections around the world. These tablets vary in size and condition, with some preserving hundreds of clearly readable symbols, while others are badly damaged or worn. The total corpus of Rongorongo text represents one of the smallest bodies of undeciphered writing in existence, making the task of translation particularly challenging since there is limited material available for pattern analysis. The origins of Rongorongo remain completely mysterious. Easter Island was settled by Polynesian peoples sometime between 700 and 1200 CE, but there is no evidence that these early settlers brought a writing system with them from their previous homes. Rongorongo appears to be an indigenous Easter Island development, making it one of the very few independent inventions of writing in human history. However, the sophisticated nature of the script suggests a long period of development, yet no evidence exists of earlier or simpler forms of Easter Island writing. Some researchers have proposed that Rongorongo may have been inspired by contact with European or South American writing systems. Spanish explorers visited Easter Island in 1770, and the island was subsequently visited by Captain Cook and other European expeditions. However, the complex symbolic content of Rongorongo suggests a writing tradition that would have required considerable time to develop, making it unlikely that the script could have been created entirely after European contact. The content and purpose of Rongorongo texts remain completely unknown. The symbols clearly represent a systematic writing system rather than random decoration, as evidenced by repeated symbol combinations and apparent grammatical structures. Some researchers have proposed that the texts may contain genealogies, historical chronicles, religious chants, or astronomical observations. However, without the ability to read the script, all such proposals remain purely speculative. Attempts to decipher Rongorongo have been hampered by the limited amount of available text and the complete absence of bilingual inscriptions or other Rosetta Stone-type materials that could provide translation keys. The unique reading pattern and symbol orientation of Rongorongo also differ from all other known writing systems, making it difficult to apply standard decipherment techniques. Additionally, the dramatic cultural disruption on Easter Island means that no oral traditions survive, that might provide clues about the script's content or reading methods. Recent computational analysis of Rongorongo has revealed interesting structural patterns that support the hypothesis that it represents genuine writing rather than purely decorative symbols. Statistical analysis shows that symbol combinations follow patterns consistent with natural language structure, including appropriate frequency distributions and grammatical regularities. However, these analyses have not yet produced breakthrough insights that would enable actual translation of the texts. The mystery of Rongorongo extends beyond questions of content to fundamental issues about the development and transmission of writing systems. If Rongorongo represents an independent invention of writing, it provides crucial insights into how symbolic communication systems develop in isolated cultural contexts. The sophistication of the script suggests that Easter Island society may have been more complex and intellectually advanced than historical accounts indicate. The loss of Rongorongo reading knowledge represents one of the most dramatic examples of cultural knowledge disappearance in recorded history. The fact that a complex writing system could be completely forgotten within a few generations demonstrates the fragile nature of cultural transmission and the devastating impact that population collapse can have on intellectual traditions. The Rongorongo mystery serves as a reminder of how much knowledge from past civilizations may have been permanently lost to history. As we conclude our journey through these mysterious maps, texts, and codes, we find ourselves confronting fundamental questions about knowledge, communication, and cultural preservation. Each of these documents represents not just an unsolved puzzle, but a window into ways of thinking, knowing, and communicating that may differ dramatically from our modern approaches to information and knowledge. The maps and texts we have explored suggest that ancient peoples possessed knowledge that challenges our understanding of historical development and cultural capabilities. Whether examining the impossible geographical accuracy of the Piri race map, the sophisticated linguistic structures of the Voynich manuscript, or the complex symbolic systems of Rongorongo, we encounter evidence of intellectual traditions that seem to exceed what we would expect from their supposed historical contexts. These mysterious documents also highlight the fragile nature of human knowledge and the ease with which entire systems of understanding can disappear from history. Languages are forgotten, writing systems become unreadable, and the keys to understanding complex intellectual traditions can be lost in a single generation. The survival of these mysterious texts serves as both a tantalizing glimpse into lost knowledge and a sobering reminder of how much we may never recover from humanity's intellectual past. The ongoing efforts to understand these textual mysteries demonstrate the evolution of scholarly methods and technological capabilities. From traditional philological analysis to computer-assisted pattern recognition and artificial intelligence applications, researchers continue to develop new approaches to these ancient puzzles. Each technological advance brings new possibilities for understanding, yet also reveals additional layers of complexity that make these mysteries even more intriguing. The study of mysterious texts and maps also raises profound questions about the nature of knowledge itself. How do we define legitimate evidence for ancient capabilities or knowledge? What standards of proof should we apply when evaluating claims about impossible ancient achievements? How do we balance skeptical analysis with openness to possibilities that may challenge our existing understanding of historical development? These textual mysteries continue to inspire new generations of researchers, amateur investigators, and curious minds who refuse to accept that some knowledge may be permanently lost to history. The quest to understand these ancient puzzles represents more than academic curiosity. It reflects a fundamental human drive to understand our own past and to recover the full scope of human intellectual achievement throughout history. Whether these mysterious documents will ever yield their secrets remains an open question. However, their continued study provides valuable insights into ancient cultures, lost knowledge systems, and the remarkable diversity of human intellectual achievement. They stand as testament to the creativity, sophistication, and complexity of our ancestors, challenging us to expand our understanding of what ancient peoples knew, how they communicated, and what they considered important enough to preserve for future generations to discover and hopefully eventually understand. While mysterious texts and impossible maps challenge our understanding of ancient knowledge, perhaps no enigmas are more haunting than the complete disappearance of entire civilizations. These are not merely lost documents or abandoned buildings. but entire peoples who once thrived, built sophisticated societies, and then vanished from history as if they had never existed. The mysteries of vanished civilizations force us to confront uncomfortable questions about the fragility of human achievement and the ease with which even the most advanced societies can disappear without leaving satisfactory explanations for their fate. The study of lost civilizations reveals patterns that are both fascinating and deeply troubling. Advanced societies that had developed sophisticated technologies, complex social systems, and impressive architectural achievements sometimes simply cease to exist, leaving behind only fragments of evidence that hint at their former greatness. In some cases, these civilizations appear to have been swallowed by rising seas or natural disasters. In others, they seem to have been abandoned for reasons that remain completely mysterious, as if entire populations simply decided to walk away from centuries of cultural development. What makes vanished civilizations particularly intriguing is how they challenge our assumptions about historical continuity and cultural persistence. We tend to think of human civilization as a steady progression of development and achievement, where knowledge accumulates over time and societies build upon the foundations laid by their predecessors. However, the archaeological record reveals a far more complex pattern, where advanced civilizations can disappear completely, taking their knowledge, technologies, and cultural achievements with them into oblivion. The mystery of vanished civilizations also highlights the role that environmental change, natural disasters, and climate fluctuations have played in human history. Many lost societies appear to have been victims of catastrophic events that overwhelmed their adaptive capabilities, from sudden climate changes that made their territories uninhabitable to geological disasters that literally submerged their cities beneath the waves. These environmental mysteries remind us that human civilization exists in a delicate balance with natural forces that can reshape or destroy even the most impressive human achievements. Our exploration of vanished civilizations begins in North America, where one of the continent's most sophisticated early cultures simply disappeared from the archaeological record around 13,000 years ago. The Clovis people, named after the distinctive stone projectile points first discovered near Clovis, New Mexico, represented one of the most successful and widespread cultures in early North American history. For over 1,000 years, Clovis technology and culture spread across the entire North American continent, from Alaska to Mexico, creating what archaeologists consider the first truly continental-scale civilization in the Americas. The Clovis culture emerged around 13,500 years ago, during the final stages of the last ice age, when much of northern North America was still covered by massive glacial ice sheets. Despite these challenging environmental conditions, the Clovis people developed sophisticated hunting technologies and social systems that allowed them to thrive across an enormous geographical range. Their distinctive fluted projectile points represent some of the finest stone tool technology ever developed, demonstrating remarkable skill in knapping and weapon design that enabled them to hunt the massive megafauna that dominated Ice Age North America. Archaeological evidence reveals that Clovis people were remarkably successful hunters who regularly took down enormous prey animals, including mammoths, mastodons, giant bison, and cave bears. Their hunting sites preserve evidence of sophisticated butchering techniques, organized group hunting strategies, and complex tool technologies that enabled small human populations to harvest enormous quantities of meat and materials from these massive animals. The success of Clovis hunting technology is demonstrated by archaeological sites containing the remains of dozens of megafauna animals that appear to have been killed and processed by Clovis hunters. The geographical distribution of Clovis sites reveals a culture that spread with remarkable speed across the North American continent. Clovis artifacts have been found from the Pacific coast to the Atlantic seaboard, from the Arctic regions of Alaska to the tropical areas of Central America. This continental distribution suggests either extremely rapid population expansion or the adoption of Clovis technology by existing populations across North America. The consistency of Clovis stone tool technology across this vast geographical range indicates sophisticated systems of cultural transmission and technological standardization. However, around 12,900 years ago, the Clovis culture suddenly disappears from the archaeological record. The disappearance is so abrupt and complete that it has become known as the Clovis boundary, a chronological marker that divides Ice Age North America from the subsequent Archaic period. After more than 1,000 years of continental dominance, Clovis technology, cultural practices, and population signatures simply vanish, to be replaced by completely different cultural traditions that show no clear continuity with Clovis practices. The mystery of Clovis disappearance becomes even more intriguing when we consider that it coincides with one of the most dramatic environmental changes in North American history. Around 12,900 years ago, North America entered a period of rapid climate change known as the Younger Dryas, during which temperatures dropped dramatically and environmental conditions became extremely unstable. This climate change coincided with the extinction of most North American megafauna, including mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and cave bears that had been the primary prey animals for Clovis hunters. Some researchers have proposed that the Clovis disappearance resulted from environmental catastrophe that overwhelmed their adaptive capabilities. The Younger Dryas climate change may have disrupted food sources, altered migration patterns, and created environmental conditions that made traditional Clovis hunting strategies ineffective. The simultaneous extinction of megafauna would have eliminated the primary economic foundation of Clovis culture, forcing dramatic cultural adaptations that may have completely transformed their society. More controversial theories suggest that the Clovis disappearance may have resulted from an extraterrestrial impact event around 12,900 years ago. Proponents of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis argue that a comet or asteroid impact triggered the rapid climate change that ended the Ice Age and caused both megafauna extinctions and Clovis cultural collapse. Evidence for this theory includes the discovery of microscopic diamonds, magnetic spherules, and other impact indicators in geological layers dating to the Younger Dryas boundary. However, this hypothesis remains highly controversial and has not gained widespread acceptance among researchers. Recent genetic studies of modern Native American populations have provided new insights into the fate of Clovis people. Rather than disappearing completely, Clovis populations may have survived the Younger Dryas crisis, but underwent dramatic cultural transformations that make their descendants difficult to identify in the archaeological record. Genetic analysis suggests that modern Native American populations descend from Ice Age ancestors who were present in North America during the Clovis period, indicating cultural transformation rather than population replacement. The mystery of Clovis disappearance highlights fundamental questions about cultural continuity and adaptation in the face of environmental crisis. The fact that such a successful and widespread culture could vanish so completely demonstrates the vulnerability of even the most advanced societies to environmental and economic disruption. The Clovis example serves as a sobering reminder that cultural achievements, no matter how impressive, can be lost if the environmental and economic foundations that support them are destroyed. From the Ice Age mysteries of North America, our journey takes us to the tropical coastlines of southeastern India, where ancient legends speak of magnificent temples that once stood above the waves, but now lie hidden beneath the Indian Ocean. The 7 pagodas of Mahabalipuram represent one of history's most persistent archaeological mysteries, with local traditions, historical accounts, and recent underwater discoveries, all pointing to the existence of a vast temple complex that was submerged by rising seas in ancient times. Mahabalipuram, also known as Mamallapuram, is located on the Coromandel coast of Tamil Nadu in southeastern India. Today, the site is famous for its remarkable collection of 7th and 8th century stone temples and rock carvings that represent some of the finest examples of ancient Indian architecture and sculpture. However, local traditions have long maintained that the visible temples represent only a small fraction of what once existed at the site. According to these legends, Mahabalipuram was once home to 7 magnificent pagodas or temples, 6 of which were swallowed by the sea, leaving only the famous shore temple that visitors can see today. The legends of the lost temples are deeply embedded in local cultural traditions and have been consistently maintained by fishing communities and temple priests for over 1,000 years. These oral traditions describe temples of extraordinary beauty and sophistication that attracted pilgrims from across the Indian subcontinent and beyond. According to the legends, the temples were so magnificent that they aroused the jealousy of the gods, who sent a great flood to submerge 6 of the 7 structures beneath the waves as punishment for human pride and ambition. Historical accounts from European travelers and colonial administrators provide additional evidence for the existence of submerged structures at Mahabalipuram. British officials in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded local reports of temple ruins visible beneath the clear coastal waters during calm weather conditions. Some accounts describe stone columns, carved walls, and architectural features that could be observed at low tide or during particularly clear weather conditions. These historical reports suggest that submerged structures were visible and well known to local populations well into the modern period. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami provided dramatic confirmation of the legends surrounding Mahabalipuram's lost temples. As the tsunami waves receded from the coastline, they exposed previously hidden stone structures, including walls, foundations, and carved architectural elements that had been buried under sand for centuries. Local residents and archaeological officials documented these briefly exposed ruins before subsequent waves and sand movement once again concealed them beneath the seafloor. Following the tsunami revelations, systematic underwater archaeological investigations have been conducted at Mahabalipuram using advanced marine archaeology techniques. These investigations have confirmed the existence of extensive stone structures beneath the coastal waters, including what appear to be temple foundations, carved walls, and architectural elements consistent with ancient Indian temple construction. Underwater surveys have identified at least 3 distinct structural complexes at various depths offshore from the modern shore temple. The underwater structures at Mahabalipuram show architectural styles and construction techniques that are consistent with the period of the visible shore temple, suggesting that they were built during the height of the Pallava dynasty's power in the 7th and 8th centuries CE. However, the depth at which these structures are found indicates that they have been submerged for a considerable period, requiring either significant changes in sea level or geological subsidence that lowered the original land surface relative to the ocean. Recent geological and oceanographic studies have provided possible explanations for the submergence of Mahabalipuram's temples. Sea level changes following the last ice age resulted in significant coastal flooding in many areas around the Indian Ocean. Additionally, the eastern coast of India is subject to geological subsidence and tectonic activity that can cause land areas to sink relative to sea level over time. The combination of rising seas and geological subsidence could explain how temple complexes that were originally built on dry land came to be submerged beneath several meters of seawater. The cultural and religious significance of the lost temples extends far beyond their archaeological importance. Mahabalipuram was a major center of Pallava dynasty power and served as an important port city connecting India with Southeast Asian trading networks. The temple complexes served not only religious functions, but also demonstrated the wealth, power, and cultural sophistication of the Pallava rulers to visitors from across the ancient world. The loss of such magnificent structures represents a significant cultural tragedy that affected the entire region's religious and artistic development. Advanced underwater scanning technologies have revealed that the submerged structures at Mahabalipuram may be far more extensive than initially realized. Sonar mapping and underwater photography have identified what appear to be organized clusters of buildings, planned street layouts, and complex architectural arrangements that suggest the existence of an entire submerged city rather than just isolated temple structures. These discoveries raise the possibility that Mahabalipuram's lost temples were part of a much larger urban complex that was entirely submerged by ancient sea level changes. From the submerged temples of India, our exploration takes us to the North Sea, where one of Europe's greatest lost civilizations lies buried beneath hundreds of feet of seawater. Doggerland, often called Europe's Atlantis, was once a vast landmass that connected Britain to continental Europe and supported what may have been one of the most advanced Mesolithic civilizations in European prehistory. This lost world disappeared beneath rising seas at the end of the last ice age, taking with it an entire way of life that had flourished for thousands of years. During the height of the last ice age, approximately 20,000 years ago, sea levels were more than 400 feet lower than they are today. This dramatically different geography meant that vast areas that are now beneath the North Sea, English Channel and Baltic Sea were dry land supporting forests, rivers, and human settlements. Doggerland, named after the Dogger Bank where many artifacts from this lost world have been recovered, encompassed an area roughly the size of modern-day Britain and included some of the most fertile and resource-rich territory in Ice Age Europe. Archaeological evidence suggests that Doggerland supported sophisticated hunter-gatherer societies that developed advanced technologies and complex social systems adapted to the rich environmental resources of this lost landscape. The region's rivers, forests, and coastal areas provided abundant game, fish, and plant resources that supported relatively dense human populations by Mesolithic standards. Archaeological sites that have been investigated on the margins of Doggerland reveal evidence of sophisticated tool technologies, permanent settlements, and complex resource management systems. The landscape of Doggerland was dominated by major river systems that drained much of northern Europe and created vast fertile valleys and coastal plains. The Thames, Rhine, and other major European rivers converged in Doggerland before flowing into the Atlantic Ocean far to the west of their current mouths. These river valleys supported dense forests and grasslands that were home to diverse wildlife populations, including red deer, wild boar, aurochs, and numerous other species that provided resources for human inhabitants. As the Ice Age ended and global temperatures rose, the vast ice sheets covering northern Europe began to melt, causing sea levels to rise gradually but inexorably. The submergence of Doggerland was not a sudden catastrophic event, but rather a slow process that took place over several millennia, from approximately 12,000 to 6,500 years ago. However, the final stages of submergence may have been accelerated by catastrophic events, including massive underwater landslides and tsunami waves that could have inundated large areas within a matter of hours or days. The Storegga Slide, a massive underwater landslide that occurred off the coast of Norway around 8,200 years ago, provides evidence for the type of catastrophic events that may have accelerated Doggerland's final submergence. This enormous geological event displaced vast quantities of seafloor sediment and generated tsunami waves that reached heights of over 60 feet along the coasts of Scotland and Norway. Similar tsunami events could have overwhelmed the low-lying landscapes of Doggerland and forced the rapid abandonment of human settlements that had existed for thousands of years. Modern marine archaeology has begun to recover evidence of human habitation from the submerged landscapes of Doggerland. Fishing vessels operating in the North Sea regularly recover stone tools, animal bones, and other artifacts from areas that were once dry land. These discoveries include sophisticated flint tools, carved bone implements, and evidence of hunting and food processing activities that demonstrate the technological capabilities of Doggerland's inhabitants. Some recovered artifacts show levels of craftsmanship and artistic sophistication that rival contemporary archaeological sites from dry land contexts. Advanced underwater survey techniques have identified potential archaeological sites on the seafloor of the North Sea that may preserve remains of Doggerland settlements. Seismic profiling and sonar mapping have revealed buried river channels, lake beds, and other landscape features that would have been attractive locations for human settlement. Some of these buried landscapes preserve organic materials in excellent condition, raising the possibility that well-preserved settlement sites with wooden structures, organic artifacts, and environmental remains may exist beneath the North Sea floor. The social and cultural implications of Doggerland's submergence extend far beyond the loss of individual settlements or archaeological sites. This lost world may have served as a crucial bridge for human migration and cultural exchange between Britain and continental Europe during the Mesolithic period. The submergence of Doggerland transformed Britain from a peninsula connected to continental Europe into an island, fundamentally altering patterns of human movement, cultural exchange, and technological development that shaped the subsequent development of British prehistory. Recent research has suggested that Doggerland may have supported some of the most advanced Mesolithic societies in European prehistory. The rich environmental resources and favorable climate of this lost landscape could have supported larger populations and more complex social systems than were typical of contemporary hunter-gatherer societies. The complete loss of this civilization means that we may have lost crucial evidence for understanding the full range of human cultural achievement during the transition from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic periods. Our journey through vanished civilizations continues to South America, where legends persist of a magnificent lost city hidden deep within the Amazon rainforest. The Brazilian Atlantis, known by various names including Ratanaba, represents one of the most intriguing examples of legendary civilizations that may have actually existed but vanished so completely that they survive only in oral traditions and disputed archaeological evidence. The legends of the Brazilian Atlantis describe a vast city of gold and crystal that was home to an advanced civilization, possessing technologies and knowledge far beyond those of contemporary peoples. According to these traditions, the city was built around a massive natural crystal formation that provided both spiritual power and practical energy for the civilization's advanced technologies. The inhabitants of this lost city were said to possess knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that enabled them to create architectural marvels and technological achievements that seemed magical to outside observers. Indigenous oral traditions from across the Amazon basin contain remarkably consistent references to ancient cities and advanced civilizations that once flourished in the rainforest interior. These traditions speak of peoples who built stone cities, created extensive agricultural systems, and possessed sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and natural sciences. Many of these oral histories describe the sudden abandonment of these cities due to natural disasters, warfare, or spiritual crises that forced their inhabitants to flee into the forest, leaving their magnificent achievements to be reclaimed by the jungle. The search for legendary Amazonian cities has a long and controversial history, dating back to the earliest European explorations of South America. Spanish conquistadors reported indigenous accounts of wealthy cities in the interior, leading to numerous expeditions searching for El Dorado and other fabled kingdoms. While these early searches were motivated primarily by the desire for gold and conquest, they documented indigenous testimonies about advanced civilizations that had existed in the Amazon before European contact. Recent archaeological discoveries have provided unexpected support for the possibility that advanced civilizations did indeed exist in the Amazon rainforest. Satellite imagery and aerial surveys have identified vast geometric earthworks, ancient road systems, and settlement patterns that suggest much larger and more sophisticated pre-Columbian populations than previously believed possible. Some of these archaeological complexes cover areas of hundreds of square kilometers and show evidence of sophisticated planning, engineering, and environmental management. The discovery of the geoglyphs of Acre, geometric earthworks carved into the Amazonian landscape, has revolutionized understanding of pre-Columbian Amazonian civilizations. These massive geometric patterns, visible only from the air, cover areas of several hectares each and demonstrate sophisticated understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and landscape engineering. The geoglyphs are associated with archaeological evidence of complex societies that practiced advanced agriculture, created extensive trade networks, and supported much larger populations than the Amazon was previously thought capable of sustaining. Archaeological investigation of ancient Amazonian settlements has revealed evidence of advanced agricultural techniques that enabled these civilizations to support large populations in environments that were previously considered unsuitable for intensive human habitation. These techniques included the creation of anthropogenic soils known as terra preta, sophisticated water management systems, and agroforestry practices that enhanced rather than degraded the natural environment. The sophistication of these agricultural systems suggests that Amazonian civilizations possess deep ecological knowledge and sustainable development practices that enabled them to thrive for centuries. The mysterious collapse of these Amazonian civilizations appears to have occurred sometime between the 14th and 16th centuries, just before European contact. The reasons for their disappearance remain unclear, but possibilities include climate change, disease epidemics, warfare, or social and political upheavals. The timing of their collapse means that European explorers arrived in the Amazon to find vast areas that had recently been abandoned, with the jungle already beginning to reclaim sophisticated settlements and agricultural systems. Recent advances in remote sensing technology have enabled researchers to identify potential locations for legendary Amazonian cities that were previously impossible to locate due to dense forest cover. LiDAR scanning, satellite imagery, and ground-penetrating radar have revealed buried structures, ancient roadways, and settlement patterns that were completely invisible to traditional archaeological survey methods. These technologies have opened new possibilities for locating and investigating the remains of advanced Amazonian civilizations. The cultural impact of vanished Amazonian civilizations extends far beyond their archaeological significance. The loss of these sophisticated societies represents the disappearance of unique approaches to sustainable development, environmental management, and social organization that could provide valuable insights for contemporary challenges. The fact that such advanced civilizations could exist in the Amazon and then vanish so completely demonstrates both the potential for human achievement and the fragility of even the most sophisticated societies. Moving from the rainforests of South America to the crystal-clear waters of the Caribbean, we encounter one of the most controversial and disputed archaeological discoveries of recent decades. The alleged 10,000-year-old sunken city off the coast of Cuba represents a mystery that challenges fundamental assumptions about ancient civilizations, sea level changes, and the development of human society in the Americas. The discovery of the alleged Cuban underwater city was first reported in 2001 by Canadian marine engineer Paulina Zalitsky and her team, who were conducting sonar surveys of the ocean floor off Cuba's western coast. Using advanced sonar equipment originally designed for oil exploration, the team identified what appeared to be geometric structures on the seafloor at depths of approximately 2,000 feet. The sonar images showed what seemed to be organized arrangements of large stone blocks, pyramid-like structures, and geometric patterns that suggested deliberate human construction. Subsequent underwater robot expeditions to the site captured video footage that appeared to show massive stone structures arranged in organized patterns on the ocean floor. The images revealed what seemed to be walls, foundations, and architectural elements that bore resemblance to megalithic construction techniques found at ancient sites around the world. Some of the structures appeared to be enormous, with individual stone blocks measuring dozens of feet in length and arranged in precise geometric configurations. The depth at which these structures are located presents the most significant challenge to interpreting them as evidence of ancient human construction. At 2,000 feet below current sea level, the structures would have been submerged since well before the development of any known advanced civilizations. If the structures are indeed artificial, they would have been built during a period when sea levels were dramatically lower than today, requiring a revision of our understanding of both sea level history and the timeline of human cultural development. Geological analysis of sea level changes suggests that the area off Cuba's coast was last above sea level approximately 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, during the final stages of the last ice age. If the underwater structures date to this period, they would represent some of the oldest evidence of advanced human construction anywhere in the world, predating the megalithic monuments of Europe and the Middle East by several millennia. Such an early date would require fundamental revisions to our understanding of human cultural development in the Americas. However, many archaeologists and geologists remain deeply skeptical about the interpretation of the Cuban underwater features as artificial structures. Critics argue that the sonar images and underwater footage may show natural geological formations that have been misinterpreted as human construction. They point out that underwater limestone formations, created by natural geological processes, can sometimes create geometric patterns that superficially resemble architectural structures. The challenges of investigating underwater sites at such extreme depths have limited the amount of detailed archaeological evidence that can be collected from the Cuban location. The crushing pressure and complete darkness at 2,000 feet below sea level make human diving impossible and require expensive robotic equipment for any investigation. The limited resolution of available underwater imaging technology makes it difficult to distinguish between natural geological features and artificial construction. Recent geological studies of the region have identified natural processes that could potentially create the types of formations observed off Cuba's coast. Underwater erosion, tectonic activity, and the dissolution of limestone bedrock can create geometric patterns, straight edges, and organized arrangements of stone that might be mistaken for human construction. However, proponents of the artificial interpretation argue that the scale and organization of the Cuban structures exceed what natural processes could realistically create. The controversy surrounding the Cuban underwater structures reflects broader debates about evidence standards in archaeology and the interpretation of unusual underwater formations. The discovery has attracted attention from both mainstream archaeologists and researchers promoting alternative theories about ancient civilizations, leading to polarized interpretations that make objective evaluation of the evidence particularly challenging. Independent verification of the Cuban underwater structures has been limited by political and practical obstacles. The location of the structures in Cuban territorial waters, combined with complex political relationships between Cuba and other nations, has restricted access for international research teams. Additionally, the extreme depth and remote location of the structures make investigation expensive and technically challenging, limiting the number of research teams that can practically study the site. From the disputed underwater structures of the Caribbean, our exploration continues to one of the most significant archaeological mysteries of the ancient world, the collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization. This sophisticated Bronze Age society flourished for over 700 years across what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, creating some of the world's earliest planned cities, advanced water management systems, and standardized systems of weights and measures, before mysteriously disappearing around 1300 BCE. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, after its first discovered site at Harappa, represented one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, contemporary with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. At its height, the civilization covered an area larger than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, encompassing over 1.5 million square kilometers and including more than 1,400 known settlement sites. The largest cities, including Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, supported populations estimated at 30,000 to 60,000 people, making them among the largest urban centers in the ancient world. The sophistication of Indus Valley urban planning exceeded anything achieved in contemporary civilizations and wouldn't be matched again for nearly 2,000 years. Cities were laid out in precise grid patterns with wide main streets, narrower residential lanes, and sophisticated drainage systems that carried wastewater away from residential areas. Every house had access to fresh water through an elaborate system of wells and water distribution channels, while waste was managed through covered drains that connected to larger sewerage systems. The technological achievements of the Indus Valley Civilization were remarkable for their time and demonstrate advanced understanding of engineering, metallurgy, and manufacturing. Indus craftsmen produced standardized bricks, precise weights and measures, sophisticated pottery, and intricate jewelry and artwork. Their bronze working techniques were among the most advanced in the ancient world, and they developed complex trade networks that extended from Central Asia to the Arabian Peninsula. Perhaps most intriguingly, the Indus Valley Civilization appears to have been remarkably peaceful and egalitarian. Archaeological excavations have found no evidence of warfare, large-scale violence, or significant social stratification. There are no obvious palaces, temples, or monuments to individual rulers, suggesting a form of social organization that differed dramatically from contemporary civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia. This apparent absence of violent conflict and extreme social hierarchy makes the Indus Valley Civilization unique among ancient urban societies. The writing system of the Indus Valley Civilization remains one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles. Thousands of inscribed seals, pottery fragments, and other artifacts bear symbols that clearly represent a systematic writing system, yet no one has been able to decipher the script. The brevity of most inscriptions and the absence of bilingual text similar to the Rosetta Stone have frustrated all attempts at translation, leaving the thoughts, beliefs, and historical records of this advanced civilization completely inaccessible to modern researchers. The collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization around 1300 BCE was gradual but complete. Over a period of approximately 200 years, the great cities were abandoned, trade networks collapsed, and the sophisticated urban way of life that had characterized the civilization for centuries simply disappeared. By 1100 BCE, the urban phase of the Indus Valley Civilization had ended entirely, leaving behind only scattered rural settlements that showed no continuity with the earlier urban traditions. Multiple theories have been proposed to explain the collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization, but none provides a completely satisfactory explanation for such a comprehensive societal collapse. Climate change theories suggest that a major shift in monsoon patterns may have disrupted the agricultural systems that supported urban populations. Archaeological evidence indicates that the Saraswati River, which appears to have been a major water source for many Indus settlements, dried up during this period due to tectonic changes that altered its course. Invasion theories propose that the civilization was conquered by Indo-Aryan peoples migrating from Central Asia, but archaeological evidence for widespread warfare or destruction is limited. The gradual nature of the collapse and the apparent absence of violent destruction at most sites suggests that invasion alone cannot explain the civilization's disappearance. Some researchers have proposed that social and political factors, including the breakdown of trade networks and administrative systems, may have contributed to the collapse. Recent research has suggested that the Indus Valley civilization may have been particularly vulnerable to environmental change due to its dependence on complex urban systems and trade networks. The sophisticated water management systems that enabled urban life may have become impossible to maintain during periods of environmental stress, leading to the abandonment of cities and the reversion to simpler rural lifestyles. The mystery of the Indus Valley civilization's collapse is compounded by the apparent complete disappearance of its cultural traditions. Unlike other ancient civilizations that left lasting influences on successor cultures, the Indus Valley civilization seems to have vanished without passing on its technological knowledge, urban planning techniques, or cultural practices to later peoples. This complete cultural discontinuity makes the civilization's collapse one of the most dramatic examples of lost knowledge in human history. Our exploration of vanished civilizations concludes with one of the most enduring legends in Mesoamerican culture, the search for Aztlan, the mythical homeland of the Aztec people. According to Aztec historical traditions, Aztlan was the original homeland from which their ancestors migrated to establish the great empire centered at Tenochtitlan. Despite centuries of searching, the location of Aztlan remains unknown, making it one of archaeology's most sought-after sites. Aztec historical sources, including the Codex Boturini and other pictographic manuscripts, describe Aztlan as an island city surrounded by water, located somewhere to the northwest of the Valley of Mexico. According to these sources, the Aztec people lived in Aztlan for generations before receiving a divine mandate to migrate southward in search of a new homeland. The migration from Aztlan was said to have taken place over many generations, with the Aztec people wandering for decades before finally settling in the Valley of Mexico, where they founded Tenochtitlan. The descriptions of Aztlan in Aztec sources emphasize its paradisiacal nature, describing it as a place of abundance where the people lived in harmony with nature and the gods. Aztlan was said to be characterized by beautiful lakes, fertile agricultural land, and architectural monuments that demonstrated the advanced civilization of its inhabitants. However, the sources also suggest that the people of Aztlan were compelled to leave their homeland due to divine commands or changing environmental conditions that made continued habitation impossible. Archaeological attempts to locate Aztlan have focused on various regions of western and northwestern Mexico, based on the directional indications provided in Aztec historical sources. Some researchers have proposed that Aztlan may have been located in the modern states of Nayarit, Sinaloa, or Sonora, regions that show evidence of advanced pre-Columbian civilizations and contain geographical features that match some descriptions of the legendary homeland. The search for Aztlan has been complicated by the mythological and symbolic elements that appear to be embedded in Aztec historical accounts. Many researchers argue that Aztlan may represent a combination of historical memory and mythological idealization, making it difficult to distinguish between genuine geographical and cultural information and symbolic or religious content. The island setting and paradisiacal descriptions of Aztlan may be archetypal elements that were added to historical traditions over time. Recent archaeological discoveries in western Mexico have provided new insights into the advanced civilizations that existed in regions where Aztlan may have been located. The discovery of sophisticated agricultural systems, monumental architecture, and complex urban settlements in areas that were previously considered peripheral to Mesoamerican civilization suggests that the technological and cultural achievements attributed to Aztlan were indeed possible in these regions. The cultural significance of Aztlan extends far beyond its potential archaeological importance. For modern Mexican and Mexican-American communities, Aztlan represents a symbol of cultural identity and historical continuity that connects contemporary peoples with their pre-Columbian ancestors. The search for Aztlan has become intertwined with broader questions about indigenous rights, cultural preservation, and the interpretation of Mesoamerican history. Some researchers have proposed that rather than being a single location, Aztlan may represent a cultural region or a series of related settlements that shared common traditions and identities. This interpretation would explain why no single archaeological site has been definitively identified as Aztlan, while accounting for the widespread cultural influences that appear to connect various pre-Columbian civilizations across western Mexico. The mystery of Aztlan's location, highlights broader questions about the relationship between oral traditions, written histories, and archaeological evidence in understanding ancient civilizations. The fact that such an important site in Mesoamerican cultural history remains undiscovered demonstrates the challenges involved in connecting legendary accounts with physical archaeological remains. As we conclude our journey through these vanished civilizations, we are left with profound questions about the nature of human achievement and the forces that can cause even the most advanced societies to disappear from history. From the Ice Age hunters of Clovis culture to the sophisticated urban planners of the Indus Valley, from the temple builders of submerged Mahabalipuram to the legendary inhabitants of Aslan, these lost civilizations remind us that human history is far more complex and fragile than our simplified narratives often suggest. The pattern of vanished civilizations reveals troubling truths about the vulnerability of human achievement to environmental change, social disruption, and cultural discontinuity. Advanced technologies can be lost, sophisticated knowledge systems can be forgotten, and entire ways of life can disappear without leaving adequate records for future generations to understand and learn from their achievements. These mysteries also highlight the crucial importance of cultural preservation and the transmission of knowledge across generations. The civilizations that vanished completely often did so because their knowledge systems were not adequately preserved, or because catastrophic events disrupted the cultural mechanisms that maintained their traditions. Their disappearance serves as a warning about the fragility of human knowledge and the ease with which centuries of cultural development can be lost. Yet these vanished civilizations also inspire us with examples of human achievement and adaptation that exceeded what we might have thought possible in their respective time periods. Their sophisticated technologies, complex social systems, and remarkable achievements demonstrate the full range of human potential and creativity throughout history. They remind us that our ancestors were capable of far more than we often assume, and that human civilization has achieved remarkable heights in many different times and places. The continuing search for these lost civilizations represents more than archaeological curiosity. It reflects a fundamental human desire to understand our own past and to recover the full scope of human achievement throughout history. Each discovery that sheds new light on these vanished societies expands our understanding of human potential and provides insights that may help us better understand our own civilization and its challenges. The mysteries of vanished civilizations continue to evolve as new archaeological techniques and technologies provide fresh insights into these ancient puzzles. Advanced remote sensing, underwater archaeology, genetic analysis, and other modern research methods are revealing new evidence about civilizations that were previously known only through legends and fragmentary archaeological remains. These ongoing investigations promise to continue expanding our understanding of human history and the remarkable diversity of human achievement across time and space. While vanished civilizations leave us with empty cities and silent ruins, some of the most perplexing mysteries of the ancient world come in far smaller packages. Scattered across museums, private collections, and archaeological sites around the globe are individual artifacts that challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities, knowledge, and technologies. These objects, ranging from precisely carved stone spheres to impossibly sophisticated mechanical devices, represent some of the most direct evidence we have that our ancestors may have possessed knowledge and abilities far beyond what conventional history suggests was possible. Unlike the massive architectural monuments or entire lost civilizations we have explored, these unusual artifacts present mysteries that can be held in human hands, examined under microscopes, and subjected to the most advanced scientific analysis available. Yet despite their accessibility and the intensive study they have received, many of these objects remain as enigmatic today as when they were first discovered. They challenge fundamental assumptions about technological development, cultural exchange, and the linear progression of human knowledge through history. What makes these artifacts particularly compelling is their suggestion that ancient peoples possess specific technical knowledge or capabilities that seem impossibly advanced for their supposed time periods. We find evidence of precision manufacturing that rivals modern industrial techniques, metallurgical achievements that contemporary science struggles to replicate, and mechanical sophistication that wouldn't be seen again for centuries or millennia after their creation. These objects force us to confront the possibility that technological development in human history may have been far more complex and non-linear than our standard narratives suggest. The study of unusual artifacts also reveals the challenges inherent in interpreting physical evidence from ancient cultures. Objects that seem impossible or anachronistic may reflect advanced techniques that were later lost, knowledge systems that operated according to different principles than modern science, or cultural contexts that we cannot fully understand from our contemporary perspective. The mysteries surrounding these artifacts remind us that the absence of evidence for ancient capabilities is not necessarily evidence of their absence. Our exploration of these enigmatic objects begins in the lush rainforests of Costa Rica, where one of archaeology's most perplexing mysteries lies scattered across the landscape in the form of nearly perfect stone spheres. These mysterious orbs, ranging in size from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter, represent one of the finest examples of precision stoneworking ever discovered, yet their purpose, creators, and methods of construction remain completely unknown. The stone spheres of Costa Rica, known locally as Las Bolas, were first brought to international attention in the 1930s, when workers clearing jungle for banana plantations began discovering perfectly round granite and gabbro spheres scattered throughout the Diqui Delta region of southern Costa Rica. The spheres appeared in groups and alignments that suggested deliberate placement, but no associated structures, artifacts, or cultural remains provided clues about their creators or purpose. More than 300 stone spheres have been documented in Costa Rica, with the largest specimens weighing over 15 tons and measuring more than 2 meters in diameter. The precision of these spheres is extraordinary. Many are so perfectly round that their deviation from a perfect sphere measures less than 2 centimeters, a level of geometric accuracy that would be challenging to achieve even with modern stoneworking equipment. The surfaces of the spheres are smoothly polished and show no evidence of the tools or techniques used in their creation. The stone spheres were carved from several different types of rock, including granodiorite, gabbro, and limestone, all of which are extremely hard materials that would have required sophisticated tools and techniques to shape with such precision. The nearest sources for some of these stone types are located dozens of kilometers from where the finished spheres were found, indicating that the creators possessed not only advanced stoneworking capabilities, but also the organizational systems necessary to transport multi-ton objects across difficult terrain. Archaeological investigation of the stone sphere sites has revealed that they were created by the pre-Columbian cultures that inhabited the region between approximately 600 and 1500 CE. However, no written records or oral traditions survive that explain the sphere's purpose or the methods used in their construction. The indigenous cultures that created them were apparently displaced or eliminated during the Spanish colonial period, taking their knowledge of the sphere's significance with them. The arrangement of the stone spheres suggests that they serve purposes beyond mere artistic expression. Many spheres are found in linear alignments, geometric patterns, and associations with other archaeological features that indicate deliberate placement according to some systematic plan. Some researchers have proposed that the spheres may have served as astronomical markers, territorial boundaries, or religious symbols, but no definitive evidence supports any of these theories. The technical challenges involved in creating perfectly spherical objects from hard stone using pre-industrial tools are staggering. Modern stoneworkers attempting to replicate the Costa Rican spheres using traditional techniques have found it virtually impossible to achieve comparable levels of precision and surface finish. The creation of each sphere would have required not only advanced technical knowledge, but also enormous investments of time and skilled labor that suggest the spheres held significant cultural or practical importance. Recent scientific analysis of the stone spheres has revealed additional mysteries about their construction. Some spheres show evidence of having been worked using techniques that leave no obvious tool marks, suggesting the use of specialized methods or instruments that are not represented in the known archaeological record. The surface finish on many spheres is so smooth and uniform that it appears almost glass-like, indicating finishing techniques of remarkable sophistication. The geographic distribution of the stone spheres within Costa Rica suggests that they were created by a widespread cultural tradition rather than a single localized group. Spheres have been found across multiple river valleys and ecological zones, indicating that knowledge of their construction techniques was shared among different communities, or that a single highly organized society controlled sphere production across a large geographical area. Attempts to understand the purpose of the Costa Rican stone spheres have been hampered by the lack of associated cultural materials and the disruption of their original archaeological contexts. Many spheres were moved from their original locations by banana plantation workers, local residents, and early researchers before systematic archaeological investigation could document their original positions and associations. This displacement has made it virtually impossible to understand the sphere's original cultural context and intended functions. From the mysterious stone spheres of Central America, our journey takes us northward to the coast of Maine, where one of archaeology's most controversial discoveries challenges conventional understanding of pre-Columbian contact between Europe and the Americas. The Maine penny, a small Norwegian coin dating to the reign of King Olaf Kyrre, 1067 to 1093 CE, was discovered at the Goddard Archaeological Site in 1957, representing the only confirmed Viking artifact ever found in the United States outside of established Norse settlements in Newfoundland. The discovery of the Maine penny at an indigenous archaeological site in Penobscot Bay immediately raised questions about how a medieval Norwegian coin came to be buried in a Native American settlement that was occupied centuries before any documented European contact with the region. The coin was found among typical Native American artifacts, including stone tools, pottery fragments, and shell implements, with no evidence of European settlement or extensive trade networks that might explain its presence. Scientific analysis confirmed that the coin is genuine, minted in Norway during the 11th century, from silver that shows the characteristic composition and isotopic signatures of medieval Scandinavian coinage. The coin shows significant wear consistent with extended circulation and use, indicating that it had been in circulation for some time before reaching its final resting place in Maine. However, the coin's journey from medieval Norway to pre-Columbian Maine remains completely mysterious. The Maine penny depicts a cross on one side and a four-pointed star or flower design on the other, confirmations typical of Norwegian coinage from the reign of Olaf Kyrre. The inscription, though worn, is consistent with other examples of coins from this period and confirms the coin's authenticity and dating. The level of wear suggests that the coin was in circulation for decades before being deposited at the Maine site, but provides no clues about the route it took to reach North America. Several theories have been proposed to explain the presence of the Maine penny in a pre-Columbian Native American context. The most straightforward explanation involves direct contact between Norse explorers and Native American populations, either through the extension of Viking exploration beyond the known Newfoundland settlements, or through Native American travel to Viking settlements and subsequent return with European artifacts. Alternative theories suggest that the coin may have reached Maine through extended Native American trade networks that connected the northeast coast with communities that had contact with Norse settlements in Newfoundland. Such trade networks are known to have existed and could have facilitated the movement of exotic objects across vast distances through multiple exchanges between different indigenous groups. More exotic theories have proposed that the Maine penny might represent evidence of previously unknown Viking expeditions to the North American coast that extended far beyond the documented settlements at Lance O' Meadows in Newfoundland. However, no other archaeological evidence supports the existence of Viking settlements or extensive Viking exploration along the Maine coast, making such theories difficult to substantiate. The archaeological context of the Maine penny's discovery provides few additional clues about its origin or significance. The Goddard site appears to have been a typical Native American seasonal camp occupied primarily during the late woodland period, with no evidence of European contact or influence other than the anomalous presence of the Norwegian coin. The coin was found in association with clearly indigenous artifacts and shows no evidence of having been specially treated or valued as an exotic object. Recent reanalysis of the Goddard site and its artifacts has not revealed any additional evidence that might explain the Maine penny's presence or provide insights into pre-Columbian contact between Europeans and Native Americans. The coin remains an isolated anomaly that challenges conventional understanding of pre-Columbian cultural contacts while providing insufficient evidence to support definitive conclusions about the nature or extent of such contacts. The significance of the Maine penny extends beyond questions about Viking exploration to broader issues concerning pre-Columbian contact between Old and New World populations. The coin demonstrates that such contact was possible and may have occurred more frequently than the historical record suggests, but it also highlights how limited and indirect such contacts may have been, leaving minimal archaeological evidence of their occurrence. From the mysteries of medieval contact between Europe and America, we turn to one of the most remarkable technological achievements of the ancient world, the Antikythera Mechanism, often called the world's first computer. This extraordinary bronze device, recovered from a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera in 1901, represents a level of mechanical sophistication that would not be seen again for over 1,000 years, challenging fundamental assumptions about ancient Greek technological capabilities. The Antikythera mechanism was discovered by sponge divers exploring a Roman-era shipwreck that sank sometime around 50–70 BCE. Initially dismissed as a simple clockwork device, the mechanism's true complexity only became apparent decades later when researchers began to understand the sophisticated system of bronze gears, dials, and inscriptions that comprise this remarkable ancient computer. The mechanism consists of at least 37 meshing bronze gears, housed in a wooden case approximately the size of a modern laptop computer. The device features multiple dials, pointer systems, and inscribed instructions that enabled ancient users to predict the positions of the sun, moon, and known planets with remarkable accuracy. The complexity of the gear ratios and the precision of their manufacture demonstrate mechanical engineering capabilities that rival modern clockmaking techniques. X-ray analysis and CT scanning of the mechanism have revealed the intricate internal structure that makes its astronomical calculations possible. The gear system incorporates mechanical representations of astronomical cycles, including the 19-year Metonic cycle that governs the relationship between solar and lunar calendars, the 4-year Olympic cycle, and various planetary motion periods. The mechanism could predict solar and lunar eclipses, determine the dates of Olympic Games, and track the complex apparent motions of the known planets. The precision of the Antikythera mechanism's bronze gears exceeds what should have been possible, using the tools and techniques supposedly available to ancient Greek craftsmen. The gear teeth are cut with remarkable accuracy and consistency, and the gear ratios precisely reflect the astronomical relationships they were designed to model. Modern attempts to recreate the mechanism using ancient tools and techniques have struggled to achieve comparable levels of precision and mechanical sophistication. The knowledge required to design and construct the Antikythera mechanism represents an extraordinary synthesis of astronomical observation, mathematical calculation, and mechanical engineering. The device incorporates sophisticated understanding of planetary motion periods, eclipse cycles, and calendar systems that required centuries of careful astronomical observation to develop. The mechanical implementation of this knowledge demanded advanced understanding of gear ratios, friction management, and precision manufacturing. Inscriptions on the mechanism provide crucial insights into its operation and the astronomical knowledge of its creators. The inscribed text includes operating instructions, astronomical data, and calendrical information that demonstrates the device's intended use as a practical tool for astronomical calculation rather than a simple demonstration model. The inscriptions also reveal knowledge of astronomical phenomena and mathematical relationships that were thought to have been lost during the ancient period. The cultural and intellectual context that produced the Antikythera mechanism remains partially mysterious. While the device clearly represents the pinnacle of ancient Greek mechanical and astronomical achievement, no surviving ancient texts describe comparable devices or the knowledge systems necessary for their construction. The mechanism appears to represent a tradition of sophisticated mechanical engineering that was either kept secret or was lost so completely that it left no trace in the historical record. Recent research has identified potential connections between the Antikythera mechanism and the School of Astronomical Research associated with Hipparchus of Rhodes, one of the greatest astronomers of the ancient world. Some of the astronomical parameters built into the mechanism correspond closely to values calculated by Hipparchus, suggesting that the device may represent a mechanical implementation of his astronomical theories and observations. The implications of the Antikythera mechanism extend far beyond its immediate technological achievement. The device demonstrates that ancient Greek civilization possessed mechanical and manufacturing capabilities that were not recognized by modern historians until its discovery. It suggests that the technological gap between ancient and modern mechanical engineering may be far smaller than previously believed, and that significant technological knowledge may have been lost during the transition from ancient to medieval periods. From the sophisticated mechanics of ancient Greece, our exploration continues with one of the most puzzling artifact categories in Roman archaeology: the mysterious bronze dodecahedrons that have been discovered across the former Roman Empire. These 12-sided objects, featuring circular holes of varying sizes and decorative knobs at each vertex, have been found in dozens of locations from Britain to the Balkans, yet their purpose remains completely unknown, despite over a century of scholarly investigation. Roman dodecahedrons are hollow bronze objects ranging in size from about 4 to 11 centimeters in diameter, featuring 12 pentagonal faces, each pierced by a circular hole of different size. The objects are typically decorated with small knobs or spheres at each of the 20 vertices where the pentagonal faces meet, and many show evidence of fine craftsmanship, including decorative elements and careful finishing. Over 100 examples have been discovered, primarily in northern provinces of the Roman Empire, including Britain, Gaul, and the Rhine regions. The geographic distribution of Roman dodecahedrons provides some clues about their cultural context, but does little to clarify their purpose. Most examples have been found in the northern frontier regions of the Roman Empire, areas that were heavily influenced by Celtic and Germanic cultures before Roman conquest. However, no dodecahedrons have been found in Rome itself or in the Mediterranean heartland of the empire, suggesting that they may represent regional traditions rather than imperial Roman technology. Archaeological contexts for dodecahedron discoveries have been remarkably uninformative about their intended use. The objects have been found in various settings, including settlements, temples, graves, and hoards, but show no consistent pattern of association that might indicate their function. Some have been found with military equipment, others with religious artifacts, and still others with domestic items, providing no clear indication of their role in Roman society. The precision and sophistication of Roman dodecahedron construction indicates that they were created by skilled craftsmen for purposes that were considered important enough to justify significant investment in materials and labor. The bronze used in their construction was expensive, and the complex geometry of their design would have required advanced mathematical knowledge and specialized tools. This level of investment suggests that the objects served significant practical or symbolic functions. Multiple theories have been proposed for the purpose of Roman dodecahedrons, but none has gained widespread acceptance among researchers. Suggestions have included use as surveying instruments, candle holders, religious objects, astronomical devices, measuring tools, and even children's toys. However, experimental attempts to use dodecahedrons for these proposed functions have generally proven impractical or have failed to explain the object's specific design features. The mathematical sophistication of the dodecahedron form itself raises questions about the level of geometric knowledge possessed by Roman craftsmen. The regular dodecahedron is one of the 5 Platonic solids and represents a complex 3-dimensional form that requires advanced understanding of geometric principles to construct accurately. The fact that Roman craftsmen could create such precise geometric forms suggests mathematical knowledge that may exceed what is generally recognized in Roman educational and technical traditions. Recent analysis of Roman dodecahedrons using advanced scientific techniques has revealed additional puzzles about their construction and use. Some objects show evidence of wear patterns that suggest regular handling or use, but the specific nature of this use remains unclear. Others show no evidence of wear, suggesting that they may have served ceremonial or symbolic rather than practical functions. The decorative elements found on many dodecahedrons provide additional clues about their cultural significance while deepening the mystery of their purpose. Some objects feature complex geometric patterns, astronomical symbols, or religious iconography that suggests connections to mathematical, scientific, or spiritual traditions. However, the meaning of these decorative elements and their relationship to the object's function remains completely obscure. The absence of any mention of dodecahedrons in surviving Roman literature adds to the mystery surrounding these objects. Roman technical and scientific texts describe a wide variety of tools, instruments, and devices, yet none mention objects matching the description of the archaeological dodecahedrons. This literary silence suggests either that the objects serve purposes that were not considered worthy of written documentation, or that they belong to cultural traditions that operated outside the mainstream Roman intellectual framework. Our journey through unusual artifacts continues to Delhi, India, where one of metallurgy's greatest mysteries stands as a testament to ancient technological achievements that modern science struggles to explain. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, a 7-meter-tall column of wrought iron that has stood exposed to the elements for over 1,600 years without showing any significant signs of rust or corrosion, represents a metallurgical achievement that challenges our understanding of ancient Indian technological capabilities. The Iron Pillar was erected sometime during the 4th or 5th century CE during the Gupta period, one of the golden ages of Indian civilization. The pillar bears Sanskrit inscriptions that identify it as a memorial to King Chandragupta II, though some scholars debate the precise identification and dating. The column originally stood in front of a Vishnu temple, though it was later moved to its current location in the Qutb complex in Delhi, where it has become one of India's most famous archaeological monuments. The most remarkable feature of the Iron Pillar is its extraordinary resistance to corrosion, despite being composed of wrought iron, a material that typically rusts rapidly when exposed to moisture and oxygen. Delhi's climate includes intense heat, monsoon rains, and high humidity, conditions that should cause rapid deterioration of exposed iron. Yet after more than 1,600 years of exposure, the pillar shows only minimal surface oxidation and retains its structural integrity and legible inscriptions. Scientific analysis of the Iron Pillar has revealed the sophisticated metallurgical techniques used in its construction. The pillar is composed of extremely pure wrought iron with a very low carbon content and minimal impurities. The iron shows a distinctive microstructure that differs significantly from modern iron production methods, suggesting the use of specialized smelting and forging techniques that were unique to ancient Indian metallurgy. The composition of the Iron Pillar includes small amounts of phosphorus that appear to play a crucial role in its corrosion resistance. The phosphorus creates a protective layer on the iron surface that prevents oxygen and moisture from penetrating to the underlying metal. However, the precise mechanisms by which ancient Indian metallurgists achieved this protective effect remain unclear, as modern attempts to replicate the pillar's composition and corrosion resistance have met with limited success. The construction of the Iron Pillar required sophisticated understanding of iron working techniques that exceeded the capabilities of most contemporary civilizations. The pillar weighs approximately 6.5 tons and was forged as a single continuous piece of wrought iron, requiring the coordination of numerous skilled craftsmen working together to heat, shape, and assemble the massive column. The precision of the forging and the uniformity of the metal composition throughout the pillar demonstrate remarkable consistency in ancient Indian metallurgical practices. The cultural and technological context that produced the Iron Pillar suggests that ancient India possessed far more advanced metallurgical knowledge than is generally recognized in historical accounts. The Gupta period was renowned for achievements in mathematics, astronomy, and the arts, but the Iron Pillar demonstrates that ancient Indian technological capabilities extended to sophisticated materials science and engineering applications. Recent research has identified additional iron objects from ancient India that show similar corrosion resistance properties, suggesting that the Iron Pillar represents not an isolated achievement, but rather an example of widespread ancient Indian metallurgical expertise. Archaeological sites across the Indian subcontinent have yielded iron artifacts that show remarkable preservation despite centuries or millennia of exposure to harsh environmental conditions. The techniques used to create the Iron Pillar's corrosion resistance may have been lost during subsequent periods of political disruption and cultural change in medieval India. The knowledge required to produce such sophisticated metallurgical results appears to have been concentrated among specialized craftsmen whose traditions may not have survived the social and economic upheavals that affected India during later historical periods. Modern material science continues to study the Iron Pillar in attempts to understand and potentially replicate its remarkable properties. Advanced analytical techniques including electron microscopy, X-ray crystallography, and chemical analysis have provided detailed insights into the pillar's composition and microstructure, but have not yet yielded complete understanding of the ancient techniques used in its creation. From the metallurgical mysteries of ancient India, our exploration takes us to modern-day Iraq, where archaeologists have discovered what may be one of the earliest examples of electrical technology in human history. The Baghdad Battery, a collection of clay jars containing copper cylinders and iron rods discovered in 1938 near Baghdad, has sparked debates about ancient knowledge of electricity and the possibility that ancient peoples possessed electrical technologies that were later lost to history. The objects that comprise the Baghdad Battery were discovered by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig during excavations of Parthian and Sassanid period sites near Baghdad. The artifacts consist of clay jars approximately 15 centimeters tall, containing copper cylinders that house iron rods, with the metal components appearing to be deliberately insulated from each other by asphalt or bitumen. Koenig recognized that this configuration closely resembles a galvanic cell and proposed that the objects may have been used to generate electricity. When modern researchers constructed replicas of the Baghdad Battery using identical materials and configurations, they discovered that the devices could indeed generate electrical current when filled with acidic solutions such as lemon juice or vinegar. The voltage produced is relatively low, typically around 1–2 volts, but is sufficient to power small electrical devices or to produce noticeable electrical effects such as electroplating or electrical shock. The archaeological context of the Baghdad Battery artifacts suggests that they date to the Parthian period, approximately 250 BCE to 250 CE, making them potentially the earliest known electrical devices in human history. If the objects were indeed used to generate electricity, they would predate the rediscovery of electrical phenomena in European science by over 1,500 years and would require fundamental revisions to our understanding of ancient technological capabilities. However, the purpose for which the Baghdad Battery may have been used remains completely speculative. No ancient texts describe electrical phenomena or the use of devices that might correspond to the Baghdad artifacts. The objects were found without clear archaeological associations that might indicate their intended function, and no additional examples of similar devices have been discovered despite extensive archaeological investigation in the region. Some researchers have proposed that the Baghdad Battery may have been used for electroplating, a process that could have been used to apply thin layers of gold or silver to copper or bronze objects. Experimental attempts to use replicas of the Baghdad Battery for electroplating have achieved some success, demonstrating that the devices could have served this function. However, no ancient objects showing clear evidence of electroplating have been definitively identified from the same time period and region. Alternative theories suggest that the Baghdad Battery artifacts may have been used for medical purposes, taking advantage of the mild electrical current they produce to treat various ailments. Ancient medical texts from various cultures describe the use of electric fish for treating certain conditions, suggesting that the therapeutic effects of electricity were recognized in the ancient world. However, no specific evidence connects the Baghdad artifacts to medical applications. Skeptical researchers have proposed that the Baghdad Battery artifacts may not have been intended to generate electricity at all, but may have served completely different purposes such as storage containers, religious objects, or components of unknown devices. The configuration that enables electrical generation may be coincidental rather than intentional, reflecting functional requirements that had nothing to do with electricity. The controversy surrounding the Baghdad Battery reflects broader debates about the evidence required to establish ancient technological capabilities. The artifacts clearly demonstrate that ancient peoples could construct devices capable of generating electricity, but provide no direct evidence that they understood electrical phenomena or intentionally exploited electrical effects. This ambiguity makes it difficult to assess the significance of the discovery for understanding ancient knowledge and capabilities. Recent scientific analysis of the original Baghdad Battery artifacts has provided additional insights into their construction and composition, while raising new questions about their intended use. Advanced chemical analysis has confirmed the presence of electrolytic solutions within some of the containers, but has not definitively established whether these solutions were original to the artifacts or resulted from later contamination. Our exploration of unusual artifacts concludes with one of the most controversial collections of ancient objects ever discovered, the Ica stones of Peru. These carved stones, numbering in the thousands, depict scenes that appear to show dinosaurs, advanced medical procedures, astronomical knowledge, and technologies that seem impossible for pre-Columbian Peru. While many researchers dismiss them as modern hoaxes, the sheer number of stones and the complexity of their carved imagery continue to generate debate about their authenticity and significance. The Ica stones were first brought to international attention in the 1960s by Dr. Javier Cabrera, a Peruvian physician who began collecting the carved stones from local farmers and amateur archaeologists in the region around Ica, Peru. Cabrera eventually amassed a collection of over 11,000 stones, ranging in size from small pebbles to massive boulders, all featuring intricate engravings that appeared to depict scenes from an unknown ancient civilization. The imagery carved on the Ica stones includes depictions that seem to challenge conventional understanding of pre-Columbian American knowledge and capabilities. Many stones appear to show dinosaurs and other extinct animals alongside human figures, suggesting knowledge of creatures that were supposedly extinct millions of years before human evolution. Other stones depict complex surgical procedures, including heart transplants, brain surgery, and organ transplantation, that would not be developed in modern medicine until the 20th century. Additional Ica stone carvings appear to show advanced astronomical knowledge, including star maps, planetary positions, and cosmic phenomena that would have required sophisticated observational capabilities and mathematical understanding to record accurately. Some stones depict technologies including flying machines, advanced transportation systems, and mechanical devices that seem anachronistic for any known pre-Columbian civilization. The authenticity of the Ica stones has been questioned by many researchers who point to various factors that suggest modern fabrication. The stones show no clear archaeological provenance, having been obtained primarily through purchases from local farmers rather than systematic archaeological excavation. Additionally, the carving techniques and tool marks on many stones appear consistent with modern metal tools rather than the stone or bronze implements that would have been available to pre-Columbian peoples. Chemical analysis of some Ica stones has revealed evidence that may support claims of modern fabrication. Tests have detected the presence of modern paints and dyes in the carved grooves of some stones, suggesting that the carvings were artificially aged or colored to appear ancient. However, supporters of the stone's authenticity argue that such evidence may result from contamination or later treatment rather than original fabrication. The geological composition of the Ica stones has been cited by both supporters and critics as evidence for their respective positions. The stones are carved from andesite, a volcanic rock that is common in the Ica region and would have been available to ancient peoples. However, the fresh appearance of many carved surfaces and the absence of significant weathering has led some researchers to conclude that the carvings are relatively recent. Local traditions and folklore in the Ica region include references to ancient carved stones that may correspond to at least some of the Ica stone collection. Some indigenous communities in the area have maintained oral traditions about ancient peoples who possessed advanced knowledge and left carved stones as records of their achievements. However, these traditions are often vague and may not specifically refer to the stones in Cabrera's collection. The controversy surrounding the Ica stones has been complicated by conflicting statements from some of the individuals involved in their discovery and distribution. Some local farmers who originally sold stones to collectors later claimed that they had carved the stones themselves as a source of income, while subsequently retracting these claims. These contradictory statements have made it difficult to establish reliable information about the stones' origins. Scientific investigation of the Ica stones has been hampered by the lack of controlled archaeological excavation and the commercial context in which many stones have been obtained. Without clear archaeological associations or systematic documentation of discovery contexts, it is virtually impossible to establish the age or cultural affiliations of the stones using standard archaeological methods. Despite the controversies surrounding their authenticity, the Ica stones raise important questions about the evaluation of unusual archaeological claims and the standards of evidence required to establish ancient capabilities. Even if some or all of the stones prove to be modern fabrications, their creation would represent a remarkable artistic and intellectual achievement that demonstrates sophisticated understanding of ancient cultures and advanced knowledge systems. As we conclude our journey through these unusual artifacts, we find ourselves confronting fundamental questions about the nature of ancient knowledge, the standards of evidence required to establish extraordinary claims, and the possibilities for human achievement that may extend far beyond what conventional history recognizes. From the precision stone spheres of Costa Rica to the anachronistic Norwegian coin in Maine, from the sophisticated mechanics of the Antikythera device to the mysterious purpose of Roman dodecahedrons, these objects challenge our assumptions about what ancient peoples knew and what they were capable of achieving. The metallurgical mysteries of the Iron Pillar and the Baghdad Battery suggest that ancient civilizations may have possessed technical knowledge in areas where we assume they were primitive or ignorant. The controversial Ica stones, regardless of their ultimate authenticity, highlight the challenges involved in evaluating claims about ancient capabilities and the importance of maintaining rigorous standards of evidence while remaining open to possibilities that may expand our understanding of human history. These unusual artifacts serve as reminders that the physical remains of ancient civilizations may preserve evidence of knowledge and capabilities that are not reflected in written records or conventional historical narratives. They suggest that human achievement throughout history may have been far more diverse and sophisticated than our simplified models of technological and cultural development typically acknowledge. The ongoing study of these mysterious objects demonstrates the evolution of scientific techniques and analytical methods that continue to provide new insights into ancient achievements while revealing additional layers of complexity and mystery. As our technological capabilities for analyzing ancient materials continue to advance, we may finally be able to answer some of the questions these artifacts have posed, while undoubtedly discovering new mysteries that will challenge future generations of researchers. The mysteries of unusual artifacts ultimately remind us that human history is filled with achievements and capabilities that we may never fully understand or appreciate. They challenge us to maintain intellectual humility about what we know and don't know about our ancestors, while inspiring continued investigation into the full range of human potential and achievement throughout our species' remarkable history. While unusual artifacts provide tangible evidence of ancient mysteries, some of the most compelling enigmas in human history involve the people themselves, mysterious individuals whose identities, deaths, or discoveries have defied explanation for centuries or millennia. These enigmatic figures, preserved in death or remembered through legend, represent some of history's most personal mysteries, where the secrets they took to their graves continue to puzzle researchers and capture imaginations long after their earthly remains have been discovered or their stories first told. The study of mysterious historical figures reveals the deeply human dimension of ancient enigmas. Behind every unexplained artifact or impossible architectural achievement were real people with knowledge, motivations, and secrets that we may never fully understand. Sometimes these individuals left behind physical remains that preserve evidence of their unusual circumstances, extraordinary lives, or mysterious deaths. In other cases, they left behind tombs, monuments, or legends that continue to generate questions about their true identities and the knowledge they possessed. What makes these personal mysteries particularly compelling is how they connect us directly to the human experience of past ages. When we examine the mummified remains of an unknown individual or investigate the circumstances surrounding a mysterious death, we are confronting the reality that ancient peoples faced the same fundamental questions about life, death, and identity that concern us today. Their mysteries become our mysteries. Their unanswered questions echo across the centuries to challenge our understanding of human nature and historical truth. The mysterious figures we encounter in history also highlight the fragile nature of identity and memory across time. Names can be forgotten, identities can be mistaken, and the circumstances of even the most significant lives can become obscured by the passage of centuries. The fact that some of history's most intriguing individuals remain anonymous or misidentified demonstrates how easily human knowledge and memory can be lost, even when dealing with people who were clearly important enough to receive elaborate burials or careful preservation. Our exploration of these enigmatic personalities begins in Alexandria, Egypt, where one of archaeology's most anticipated discoveries turned into one of its greatest disappointments and deepest mysteries. The Black Sarcophagus of Alexandria, a massive granite coffin discovered in 2018, captured global attention when its imposing size and pristine condition suggested it might contain the remains of Alexander the Great or another figure of comparable historical significance. However, when the sarcophagus was finally opened, it revealed not treasures or royal remains, but 3 decomposed skeletons, and a mystery that continues to baffle researchers. The black sarcophagus was discovered during construction work in the Sidi Gaber district of Alexandria, buried beneath layers of soil and debris that had accumulated over more than 2 millennia. The sarcophagus itself is remarkable for its size and construction, measuring over 9 feet long, 5 feet wide, and 6 feet high, making it the largest granite sarcophagus ever discovered in Alexandria. The black granite from which it was carved is extremely hard and would have required sophisticated tools and considerable skill to shape into such a precisely fitted container. What made the discovery particularly intriguing was the sarcophagus's apparent state of preservation. Unlike many ancient burials that show evidence of ancient tomb robbing or water damage, the black sarcophagus appeared to have remained sealed since antiquity. The massive granite lid was still in place, held down by mortar that appeared to be original to the burial. This suggested that whatever lay inside had remained undisturbed for over 2,000 years, raising hopes that it might contain perfectly preserved remains or artifacts of extraordinary historical significance. The dating of the black sarcophagus places its creation during the Ptolemaic period of Egyptian history, roughly contemporary with the time of Alexander the Great and his successors. This timing, combined with the sarcophagus's location in Alexandria, the city founded by and named after Alexander, fueled speculation that it might contain the remains of the great conqueror himself. Alexander's tomb has been one of archaeology's most sought-after prizes, and the discovery of such an impressive burial in his city seemed to offer the possibility of finally solving this ancient mystery. However, when archaeologists finally opened the black sarcophagus in July 2018, they found not the pristine burial of a great historical figure, but the decomposed remains of 3 individuals floating in several inches of reddish liquid that had accumulated inside the sarcophagus over the centuries. The condition of the remains was poor, with the skeletons showing significant deterioration and the liquid showing signs of contamination from sewage that had leaked into the burial chamber over time. Initial analysis of the skeletal remains revealed that they belonged to 3 adult males who appeared to have died violent deaths. One skull showed clear evidence of trauma from what appeared to be a sharp weapon, possibly an arrow or spear point. The remains showed no evidence of mummification or other preservation techniques typically associated with high-status Egyptian burials, suggesting that despite the impressive sarcophagus, these individuals may not have been members of the royal family or highest levels of society. The mystery deepened when researchers attempted to determine the identities of the 3 men and the circumstances of their burial. The violent nature of their deaths, combined with their placement in such an elaborate sarcophagus, suggests unusual circumstances that don't fit typical patterns of Egyptian burial practices. Some researchers have speculated that they may have been warriors who died in battle and were honored with burial in a sarcophagus originally intended for someone else, while others have proposed that they may have been victims of political violence who were hastily buried in whatever suitable container was available. The liquid found inside the black sarcophagus has generated additional controversy and speculation. While initial analysis suggested it was primarily sewage that had leaked into the sarcophagus over time, some researchers have proposed that it might preserve ancient embalming fluids or other substances that could provide insights into ancient burial practices. However, the contaminated nature of the liquid has made definitive analysis challenging, and its composition remains partially mysterious. Recent DNA analysis of the skeletal remains has provided some additional insights while raising new questions about the identities of the 3 men. The genetic analysis suggests that the individuals were not closely related to each other, ruling out the possibility that they were family members buried together. The results also indicate that the men were likely of local Egyptian or Mediterranean origin rather than foreign conquerors or visitors, which contradicts some theories about their possible identities. From the disappointing revelations of Alexandria, our journey takes us to medieval Bohemia, where one of the most mysterious and imposing manuscripts in history continues to puzzle scholars and capture imaginations more than 800 years after its creation. The Codex Gigas, known as the Devil's Bible, is the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world and features one of the most striking and unusual illustrations ever created, a full-page portrait of the devil that has given the manuscript its sinister reputation. The Codex Gigas was created in the early 13th century in the Benedictine monastery of Podlazice in Bohemia, now part of the Czech Republic. According to legend, The manuscript was written by a single monk who completed the enormous work in a single night with the help of the devil himself. While this supernatural origin story is clearly mythical, the actual circumstances of the manuscript's creation remain mysterious, particularly given the enormous scope of the work and the consistency of its handwriting throughout its 310 pages. The physical characteristics of the Codex Gigas are extraordinary by any standard. The manuscript measures approximately 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8 inches thick, making it roughly the size of a modern flat-screen television. It weighs about 165 pounds and required the skins of approximately 160 animals to create the vellum pages on which it was written. The sheer scale of the project represents an enormous investment of resources and labor that would have been challenging for any medieval monastery to undertake. The contents of the Codex Gigas are as remarkable as its size. The manuscript includes the complete text of the Latin Vulgate Bible, along with various other texts including historical chronicles, medical treatises, exorcism formulas, and encyclopedic works. The variety of content suggests that the manuscript was intended to serve as a comprehensive reference work that would provide a monastery with access to essential religious, historical, and practical knowledge. However, it is the manuscript's illustrations that have generated the most attention and controversy. The most famous image is a full-page illustration of the devil, depicted as a grotesque figure with horns, claws, and a lolling tongue, crouched in a threatening pose. The illustration is rendered with remarkable artistic skill and attention to detail, creating an image that remains powerfully disturbing even by contemporary standards. Facing this demonic portrait is an illustration of the heavenly city, creating a stark visual contrast between good and evil. The legend surrounding the Codex Gigas claims that it was created by a monk named Herman the Recluse, who had been sentenced to death by being walled up alive for violating his monastic vows. According to the story, Herman bargained for his life by promising to create a manuscript that would glorify the monastery forever, containing all human knowledge and completed in a single night. When Herman realized that the task was impossible, he supposedly called upon the devil for assistance, exchanging his soul for supernatural help in completing the work. While the supernatural elements of this legend are clearly fictional, some aspects may preserve genuine historical memory about the manuscript's creation. Historical records suggest that a monk named Herman may indeed have been associated with the monastery at Podlazite during the period when the Codex Gigas was created. However, scholarly analysis of the manuscript indicates that its creation would have required many years of work rather than a single night, making the legendary account impossible in its literal form. The artistic and scribal analysis of the Codex Gigas reveals remarkable consistency in handwriting and artistic style throughout the manuscript, suggesting that it was indeed the work of a single individual rather than a collaborative effort involving multiple scribes and artists. This consistency is extraordinary given the manuscript's length and complexity, and it supports the tradition that one person was primarily responsible for its creation, even if that process took years rather than hours. The historical journey of the Codex Gigas adds additional layers of mystery to its story. The manuscript remained at Podlazite until the monastery was dissolved in the late 14th century, after which it passed through various collections before ending up in the Imperial Library in Prague. During the 30 Years' War, the manuscript was taken as war booty by Swedish forces and transported to Stockholm, where it remains today in the National Library of Sweden. The reputation of the Codex Gigas as a cursed or supernatural object has persisted throughout its history, with various disasters and misfortunes being attributed to its malevolent influence. However, these supernatural associations likely reflect the manuscript's imposing appearance and the striking nature of its demonic illustration, rather than any genuine paranormal activity. The persistence of these legends demonstrates the powerful psychological impact that the manuscript continues to have on those who encounter it. From the medieval mysteries of Bohemia, our exploration takes us back to ancient Egypt, where the Valley of the Kings continues to yield discoveries that challenge our understanding of ancient Egyptian burial practices and royal history. Among the most puzzling of these discoveries is the mummy designated as Unknown Man E, whose remains were found in tomb KV 55 in 1907, under circumstances that have generated decades of debate about his identity, the cause of his death, and the reasons for his unusual burial. The discovery of unknown man E occurred during excavations led by British archaeologist Arthur Weigel in the small, undecorated tomb designated KV-55. The tomb appeared to have been hastily prepared and contained evidence of ancient disturbance, including damaged burial equipment and a partially dismantled sarcophagus. The mummy itself was found in a deteriorated state, with the burial wrappings partially destroyed and the body showing signs of both ancient damage and poor preservation conditions. What made unknown man E particularly mysterious was the unusual condition of his mummy and the apparent haste with which his burial had been conducted. Unlike the carefully prepared royal mummies found in other Valley of the King's tombs, unknown man E showed evidence of rapid mummification that may not have followed standard Egyptian embalming procedures. The body appeared to have been prepared for burial quickly, possibly under emergency conditions that prevented the elaborate mummification process typically associated with royal burials. The identity of unknown man E has been the subject of intense scholarly debate, with various theories proposing that he might be one of several significant figures from the tumultuous period at the end of the 18th dynasty. Some researchers have suggested that the mummy might be Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh who attempted to revolutionize Egyptian religion, while others have proposed that it could be Smenkhkare, a mysterious co-ruler who may have briefly shared power with Akhenaten. Recent DNA analysis and CT scanning of unknown man E have provided new insights, while raising additional questions about his identity and circumstances. The genetic analysis has confirmed that the mummy is male and that he died in young adulthood, consistent with historical accounts of several potential candidates for his identity. However, the DNA results have not definitively identified him with any known royal figure, leaving his identity uncertain. The physical examination of unknown man E has revealed evidence of possible violence or trauma that may have contributed to his death. CT scans have identified what appear to be injuries to the skull and other parts of the body that could indicate violent death, though the poor preservation of the remains makes definitive determination of cause of death challenging. These potential signs of violence have fueled speculation that unknown man E may have been the victim of political assassination or execution. The burial context of unknown man E provides additional clues about the circumstances surrounding his death and burial. The tomb in which he was found appears to have been prepared hastily and lacks the elaborate decorations and burial goods typically associated with royal interments. Some of the burial equipment found with the mummy bears names that have been deliberately defaced or removed, suggesting that the burial may have been conducted under politically sensitive circumstances. The historical period during which unknown man E lived and died was marked by religious and political upheaval that could explain the unusual circumstances of his burial. The end of the 18th dynasty saw the collapse of Akhenaten's religious reforms, the restoration of traditional Egyptian religion, and significant political instability that may have resulted in the violent deaths of several royal figures. The hasty and secretive nature of unknown man E's burial may reflect the politically charged atmosphere of this period. Recent research has attempted to use facial reconstruction techniques to determine what unknown man E may have looked like in life, providing new approaches to the question of his identity. These reconstructions have created images that some researchers believe show resemblances to known portraits of Akhenaten or other royal figures from the period. However, the accuracy of such reconstructions when applied to poorly preserved ancient remains remains questionable. From the royal mysteries of ancient Egypt, our journey takes us to medieval France, where archaeological investigations have uncovered evidence of individuals whose extraordinary size has reignited debates about the existence of giants in human history. The case of the giant of Castelnau represents one of the most controversial and disputed claims for the discovery of human remains that appear to exceed normal human proportions by significant margins. The discovery that gave rise to the giant of Castelnau legend occurred in 1890 near the town of Castelnau-le-Lez in southern France, where workers uncovered what appeared to be unusually large human bones during excavation work. The finds were initially investigated by Georges Vacher de la Pouge, a French anthropologist who reported that the bones belonged to an individual of extraordinary stature, possibly measuring over 11 feet in height, based on the size of the recovered femur and other long bones. The reported measurements of the Castelnau bones far exceed the normal range of human height variation, even accounting for rare cases of gigantism caused by medical conditions such as acromegaly or pituitary tumors. If the measurements reported by de la Puig were accurate, the Castelnau individual would represent one of the tallest humans ever documented, rivaling or exceeding even the most extreme cases of pathological gigantism in the medical literature. However, the authenticity and interpretation of the Castelnau discovery have been subjects of intense controversy since the initial reports were published. Critics have pointed out that the original bones were never subjected to rigorous scientific analysis and that they disappeared from academic collections shortly after their discovery, making it impossible to verify the claims about their extraordinary size. Some researchers have suggested that the measurements may have been exaggerated or that the bones may have belonged to other species rather than humans. The historical context of the Castelnau discovery places it within a period when European anthropologists were particularly interested in discovering evidence of prehistoric giants or unusual human types. The late 19th century saw numerous claims for the discovery of giant human remains across Europe and North America, many of which were later revealed to be misidentifications, hoaxes, or misinterpretations of normal human remains or animal bones. Archaeological investigation of the Castelnau site in subsequent decades has not yielded additional evidence of unusually large human remains or any other confirmation of the original claims. Modern excavations in the region have recovered normal human skeletal remains from various prehistoric periods, but none showing the extraordinary proportions reported for the original discovery. This absence of supporting evidence has led many researchers to conclude that the original claims were probably erroneous. The scientific understanding of human growth and development makes the existence of humans reaching the proportions claimed for the Castelnau giant extremely unlikely from a biological perspective. Individuals with severe gigantism rarely survive to adulthood due to the health complications associated with extreme growth, and the biomechanical constraints of human skeletal structure make it virtually impossible for humans to reach heights of 11 feet or more while maintaining the ability to walk and function normally. However, supporters of the giant of Castelnau claims point to various historical and legendary accounts of unusually tall humans as potential support for the possibility that such individuals existed in the past. Many cultures around the world preserve traditions about giants or exceptionally tall people, and some researchers argue that these widespread legends may preserve authentic historical memories of individuals with extreme height. Recent advances in the study of human remains and ancient DNA have provided new tools for investigating claims about unusual human types or extreme physical characteristics in prehistoric populations. However, the absence of the original Castelnau bones makes it impossible to apply these modern analytical techniques to verify or refute the original claims about the discovery. The case of the giant of Castelnau illustrates the challenges involved in evaluating extraordinary archaeological claims, particularly when the original evidence is no longer available for independent verification. The controversy surrounding this discovery highlights the importance of rigorous documentation, careful measurement, and preservation of archaeological materials to ensure that unusual finds can be properly studied and validated. From the disputed giants of medieval France, our exploration continues to one of the most anticipated archaeological projects in human history, the excavation of the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. This massive burial complex, guarded by the famous terracotta army and located near Xi'an in central China, represents one of the few intact imperial tombs from the ancient world. Yet it remains largely unexcavated, despite decades of archaeological investigation of the surrounding areas. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang was constructed over a period of nearly 4 decades during the 3rd century BCE, involving hundreds of thousands of workers and craftsmen who created what historical sources describe as one of the most elaborate burial complexes ever constructed. According to the ancient historian Sima Qian, the tomb contains a miniature representation of the Chinese Empire, complete with flowing mercury rivers, mechanical stars and planets, and countless treasures intended to serve the emperor in the afterlife. The historical accounts of the tomb's contents are so extraordinary that they border on the fantastical. Sima Qian describes chambers filled with precious metals and jewels, mechanical devices designed to kill intruders, and a ceiling decorated with pearls representing the stars and constellations. The tomb supposedly contains a scale model of the emperor's territories, with rivers and seas represented by flowing mercury and mechanical systems designed to simulate the movement of celestial bodies. Modern archaeological investigation of the tomb area has confirmed some aspects of the historical descriptions while raising new questions about others. Ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques have identified what appear to be large underground chambers and structural features consistent with a major burial complex. Soil analysis has detected unusually high levels of mercury in the area above the supposed tomb location, potentially supporting ancient accounts of mercury rivers within the burial chambers. The decision not to excavate the main burial chamber reflects both practical and philosophical considerations that illustrate the challenges of investigating the world's most significant archaeological sites. Chinese authorities have stated that current archaeological techniques are not sufficiently advanced to guarantee the preservation of whatever artifacts and organic materials may be contained within the tomb. The example of damage caused to some artifacts during the excavation of the Terracotta Army has reinforced concerns about the potential for irreversible harm to priceless cultural heritage. The technical challenges involved in excavating the tomb of Qin Shi Huang are staggering by any standard. The burial chamber is believed to be located approximately 100 feet below ground level and may be surrounded by complex drainage and security systems designed to prevent water infiltration and unauthorized access. The presence of mercury in potentially dangerous concentrations could pose serious health risks to excavation teams, while the reported presence of ancient booby traps adds additional safety concerns. The cultural and political significance of the tomb extends far beyond its archaeological importance. Qin Shi Huang is revered as the founder of unified China and the creator of many institutions that shaped Chinese civilization for over 2 millennia. His tomb represents not just an individual burial, but a symbol of Chinese cultural continuity and imperial tradition that makes any excavation decision politically as well as scientifically significant. Recent technological advances have provided new possibilities for investigating the tomb without full excavation. Advanced imaging techniques, robotic exploration systems, and microsampling methods could potentially allow researchers to gather significant information about the tomb's contents while minimizing disturbance to the burial context. However, implementing such technologies on the scale required for the Qin Shi Huang tomb would represent a massive undertaking, requiring international collaboration and unprecedented financial investment. The mystery of what lies within the tomb of Qin Shi Huang represents one of archaeology's greatest remaining prizes. The potential for discovering intact examples of ancient Chinese art, technology, and material culture from the Qin period could revolutionize understanding of early imperial China and provide insights into the cultural and technological achievements of one of history's most significant civilizations. From the unexcavated mysteries of ancient China, our journey takes us to the steppes of Mongolia, where one of history's most successful conquerors left behind one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles. The burial location of Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire and one of the most influential figures in human history, remains completely unknown despite centuries of searching and numerous expeditions dedicated to finding his final resting place. The mystery of Genghis Khan's burial begins with the deliberate secrecy that surrounded his death and funeral in 1227 CE. According to historical accounts, the great conqueror's body was transported back to Mongolia from his deathbed in western Xia and buried in a location that was kept secret to prevent desecration by enemies or treasure hunters. The funeral procession allegedly killed anyone who witnessed the burial cortege, and the exact location of the burial site was known only to a select few who carried the secret to their own graves. Mongol burial traditions of the early 13th century emphasized simplicity and secrecy rather than the elaborate monuments favored by other cultures. Mongol nobles were typically buried in unmarked graves that were deliberately concealed to prevent disturbance, reflecting cultural beliefs about the spiritual importance of allowing the dead to rest undisturbed. This tradition of secret burial makes the search for Genghis Khan's tomb particularly challenging, as there would be no visible monuments or markers to guide modern searchers. The geographical scope of the potential search area for Genghis Khan's tomb is enormous, encompassing hundreds of thousands of square kilometers across Mongolia, northern China, and adjacent regions. Historical sources provide only vague geographical references to the burial location, mentioning sacred mountains and rivers that may no longer be identifiable or may have changed over the intervening centuries. The vastness of the Mongol steppes and the absence of distinctive landmarks make systematic searching extremely difficult. Various historical accounts provide conflicting information about the location and circumstances of Genghis Khan's burial. Some sources suggest that he was buried near the Onan River in northern Mongolia, close to his probable birthplace, while others indicate burial sites in the Altai Mountains or other regions. The contradictory nature of these accounts may reflect deliberate misinformation designed to confuse potential tomb raiders, or they may result from the confusion that surrounded the secret funeral arrangements. Modern archaeological expeditions searching for Genghis Khan's tomb have employed various strategies and technologies without achieving definitive results. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and systematic surface surveys have been used to identify potential burial sites, while historical and anthropological research has attempted to narrow the search area based on cultural and geographical factors. However, the combination of vast search areas, difficult terrain, and the deliberate concealment of the burial site has frustrated all attempts at discovery. The potential contents of Genghis Khan's tomb represent one of archaeology's most tantalizing prospects. As the founder of the largest contiguous empire in human history, Genghis Khan would likely have been buried with treasures from across the known world, including precious metals, jewelry, weapons, and artifacts representing the diverse cultures that comprise the Mongol Empire. The tomb might also contain historical documents or other materials that could provide unprecedented insights into Mongol culture and the personal life of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Political and cultural considerations have complicated the search for Genghis Khan's tomb, particularly given its location within modern Mongolia and the cultural sensitivities surrounding the disturbance of sacred sites. Many Mongols consider the search for the tomb to be culturally inappropriate and potentially harmful to the spiritual well-being of their greatest historical hero. These concerns have limited the scope and methods of archaeological investigation and have led to restrictions on certain types of research activities. Recent technological advances have opened new possibilities for locating hidden burial sites in challenging terrain. Satellite-based remote sensing, advanced ground-penetrating radar systems, and drone-based survey methods could potentially identify subsurface anomalies that might indicate buried structures or human modification of the landscape. However, applying these technologies to the vast areas involved in the Genghis Khan search would require enormous resources and international cooperation. The continuing mystery of Genghis Khan's burial location reflects broader questions about the relationship between historical memory, cultural values, and archaeological investigation. The deliberate concealment of the tomb represents a successful implementation of Mongol cultural values that prioritize the peaceful rest of the dead over the preservation of material wealth or historical documentation. The failure to locate the tomb despite modern technology and intensive searching demonstrates the effectiveness of ancient secrecy methods and the limitations of contemporary archaeological techniques. Our exploration of mysterious figures concludes with one of the most famous archaeological discoveries of the 20th century and the legendary curse that has become associated with it. The tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, yielded unprecedented treasures and insights into ancient Egyptian royal burial practices, but it also became associated with a series of deaths and misfortunes that gave rise to the legend of the Curse of the Pharaohs. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings represented the culmination of years of searching by Howard Carter and his patron, Lord Carnarvon. The tomb, designated KV-62, was found largely intact and contained the most complete collection of ancient Egyptian royal burial goods ever discovered. The extraordinary preservation of the tomb's contents provided unprecedented insights into ancient Egyptian art, technology, and burial practices while making Tutankhamun one of the most famous pharaohs in history. However, the celebration of this archaeological triumph was overshadowed by a series of deaths and illnesses that affected individuals associated with the tomb's discovery and excavation. Lord Carnarvon died in Cairo just 5 months after the tomb's opening, apparently from an infected mosquito bite that developed into fatal pneumonia. This death, occurring so soon after the tomb's discovery, provided the foundation for speculation about supernatural retribution against those who had disturbed the pharaoh's rest. The legend of King Tut's curse gained momentum when additional deaths occurred among individuals connected to the tomb's excavation. George J. Gould, an American financier who visited the tomb, died of fever shortly after his visit. Arthur Mace, a member of Carter's excavation team, died of arsenic poisoning under mysterious circumstances. Several other individuals associated with the discovery died within the first few years following the tomb's opening, creating a pattern that seemed to support supernatural explanations. Media coverage of these deaths sensationalized the curse story and created a global fascination with the supposed supernatural powers of ancient Egyptian burial practices. Newspapers around the world reported on each new death or misfortune affecting those connected to the tomb, often emphasizing mysterious or unexplained circumstances while downplaying natural explanations for the deaths. This media attention transformed the curse from archaeological curiosity into a cultural phenomenon that persists to this day. However, scientific analysis of the supposed curse reveals that the pattern of deaths and illnesses associated with Tutankhamun's tomb is not statistically unusual when compared to expected mortality rates for individuals of similar ages and circumstances. Howard Carter himself, who spent more time in the tomb than anyone else and should have been the primary target of any supernatural retribution, lived for another 17 years after the discovery and died of natural causes at age 64. Modern medical and scientific investigation has identified several potential natural explanations for illnesses that may have affected individuals who entered the tomb. Ancient tombs can contain dangerous bacteria, fungi, or toxic substances that could cause respiratory infections, allergic reactions, or other health problems in people exposed to them. The confined spaces and poor air circulation in Egyptian tombs could concentrate these hazardous materials to dangerous levels. Recent microbiological analysis of ancient Egyptian tombs has identified various potentially pathogenic organisms that could cause serious illness in exposed individuals. Aspergillus fungi, which can cause severe respiratory infections, have been found in many ancient tombs, while other bacterial and fungal species present in tomb environments could cause skin infections, allergic reactions, or other health problems. These natural hazards provide plausible explanations for some of the illnesses associated with tomb exploration. The psychological and cultural impact of the curse legend has had lasting effects on public perceptions of archaeology in ancient Egypt. The association of supernatural danger with archaeological discovery has influenced popular culture, inspiring countless books, movies, and television shows that perpetuate the idea that ancient tombs are protected by supernatural forces. This cultural legacy demonstrates the powerful appeal of mysterious and supernatural explanations for unusual events. From the legendary curses of ancient Egypt, our exploration shifts to examine some of the most puzzling natural phenomena that have challenged scientific understanding and captured human imagination for generations. These enigmatic occurrences, spanning both natural processes and human-made features, remind us that mysteries exist not only in the archaeological record, but also in the natural world around us, where processes we observe today may operate according to principles we do not fully comprehend. The moving stones of Death Valley represent one of nature's most perplexing phenomena, where massive rocks weighing hundreds of pounds appear to move across the desert floor on their own, leaving mysterious trails behind them but never being observed in motion. Located in the remote racetrack playa of Death Valley National Park in California, these moving stones have puzzled scientists and visitors for over 80 years, generating numerous theories, but only recently yielding to scientific explanation. Racetrack Playa is a flat, dry lake bed approximately 2.8 miles long and 1.25 miles wide, surrounded by mountains and composed of extremely fine, smooth sediment that creates an almost perfectly level surface. The playa is dotted with large boulders that have fallen from the surrounding cliffs, some weighing several hundred pounds. These rocks are found throughout the playa, but what makes them extraordinary is the presence of long, straight trails extending behind many of them, clearly indicating movement across the desert surface. The stone trails on Racetrack Playa can extend for hundreds of yards and show clear evidence that the rocks have moved considerable distances across the desert floor. The trails are typically straight or slightly curved and appear to have been created by the rocks being pushed or dragged across the fine sediment surface. However, despite decades of observation by scientists and park visitors, no one had ever witnessed the stones actually moving, creating a mystery that seemed to defy natural explanation. Various theories were proposed to explain the movement of the Death Valley stones, including underground seismic activity, magnetic fields, unusual wind patterns, and even paranormal forces. Some researchers suggested that hurricane-force winds might be capable of moving the stones, while others proposed that the smooth playa surface might somehow reduce friction enough to allow normal winds to push even heavy rocks. However, experimental attempts to move rocks using these proposed mechanisms generally failed to achieve the effects observed in nature. The mystery of the moving stones was finally solved in 2014 when researchers Richard and James Norris set up weather monitoring equipment and time-lapse cameras on racetrack playa to document the conditions under which stone movement occurs. Their observations revealed that the stones move during rare winter conditions when the playa floods with a few inches of water that subsequently freezes into thin sheets of ice. The actual mechanism of stone movement proved to be both elegant and surprising. During rare winter storms, rain fills the normally dry playa with a shallow lake. On cold, clear nights following these storms, the water freezes into thin sheets of ice, typically only a few millimeters thick. When the sun rises the next morning, it begins to melt and break up these ice sheets, while light winds push the floating ice fragments across the water surface. As the floating ice sheets move across the flooded playa, they push against stones that protrude above the water surface, slowly moving them across the muddy bottom. The forces involved are relatively small, but they are sufficient to overcome the friction of the stones against the soft, wet sediment. When the water evaporates, it leaves behind the moved stones and their trails preserved in the dried mud, creating the mysterious patterns that had puzzled observers for decades. The solution to the moving stones mystery demonstrates how natural phenomena that appear supernatural or impossible can result from the interaction of common natural processes under rare but specific conditions. The movement requires the precise combination of flooding, freezing temperatures, thin ice formation, morning sunshine, and gentle winds, a set of conditions that occurs perhaps once every few years and typically lasts only a few minutes, explaining why the movement had never been directly observed despite decades of investigation. Our final mystery takes us to the chalk hills of Oxfordshire, England, where one of Britain's most ancient and enigmatic landmarks continues to puzzle archaeologists and historians more than 3,000 years after its creation. The Uffington White Horse, a stylized figure of a horse carved into the hillside, represents one of the finest examples of prehistoric hill art in Europe, yet its original purpose, meaning, and cultural significance remain completely unknown. The Uffington White Horse is located on the slope of White Horse Hill in the Berkshire Downs, where it overlooks the ancient Ridgeway track that served as a major prehistoric transportation route across southern England. The figure measures approximately 374 feet in length and 110 feet in height, making it visible from distances of over 15 miles under favorable conditions. The horse is created by removing the topsoil to expose the underlying white chalk bedrock, creating a bright white figure that contrasts dramatically with the surrounding green landscape. Archaeological dating of the Uffington White Horse has proven challenging due to the nature of its construction and the absence of associated artifacts or organic materials that could provide radiocarbon dates. However, recent optically stimulated luminescence dating of sediments from the figure's construction has established that it was created sometime between 1400 and 600 BCE, during the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age period of British prehistory. The artistic style of the Uffington White Horse is highly stylized and abstract, bearing little resemblance to naturalistic depictions of horses found in other forms of prehistoric art. The figure features flowing, curved lines that create an impression of movement and grace, while using minimal detail to suggest the essential characteristics of a horse. This artistic sophistication suggests that its creators possessed advanced understanding of both artistic principles and the practical challenges involved in creating large-scale landscape art. The cultural context in which the Uffington White Horse was created remains largely mysterious due to the limited archaeological evidence from the site and the absence of written records from prehistoric Britain. As our extraordinary journey through time's greatest mysteries draws to a close, we find ourselves standing at the intersection of knowledge and wonder, science and speculation, ancient achievement and modern puzzlement. We have traversed continents and millennia, examining megalithic monuments that challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities, deciphering texts that refuse to yield their secrets, exploring vanished civilizations that disappeared without adequate explanation, and investigating artifacts that seem impossibly advanced for their supposed time periods. What emerges from this comprehensive exploration is a humbling truth. Despite all our technological advances, sophisticated analytical methods, and accumulated scientific knowledge, the ancient world continues to guard its secrets jealously. Each mystery we have encountered represents not just an unsolved puzzle, but a fundamental challenge to our assumptions about human history, technological development, and the linear progression of knowledge that we often take for granted. The sheer diversity of these mysteries is perhaps their most striking characteristic. From the impossible precision of Baalbek's megalithic blocks to the undeciphered symbols of the Voynich manuscript, from the sudden disappearance of the Clovis people to the mysterious purpose of Roman dodecahedrons, these enigmas span every aspect of human achievement and experience. They remind us that mystery is not confined to any single culture, time period, or type of human endeavor, but rather appears to be a fundamental characteristic of our species' relationship with its own past. The technological mysteries we have explored are particularly challenging to our modern worldview. We live in an age that prides itself on scientific understanding and technological mastery, yet we encounter ancient achievements that we struggle to explain or replicate. The corrosion-resistant iron pillar of Delhi, the sophisticated mechanics of the Antikythera device, the precision stone spheres of Costa Rica. These objects force us to confront the possibility that ancient peoples possess knowledge and capabilities that we have either lost or never fully understood. The architectural mysteries present equally profound challenges to conventional historical narratives. How did ancient peoples move and precisely place stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons without modern heavy lifting equipment? How did they achieve levels of precision in stone cutting and fitting that rival contemporary industrial capabilities? How did they plan and execute construction projects of staggering complexity without apparent precedent or evolutionary development? These questions remain as perplexing today as when these monuments were first discovered by modern archaeologists. The textual mysteries remind us that knowledge itself is fragile and that entire systems of understanding can disappear from human memory. Languages are forgotten, writing systems become unreadable, and the intellectual achievements of entire civilizations can be reduced to incomprehensible symbols on ancient pages. The fact that we possess these mysterious texts but cannot read them serves as a stark reminder of how much knowledge from the past may be permanently lost to us. Perhaps most sobering are the vanished civilizations that once flourished but left behind only fragments of evidence for their existence. The sophisticated urban planners of the Indus Valley, the temple builders of submerged Mahabalipuram, the advanced societies of Doggerland. These represent entire worlds of human experience that have been largely erased from history. Their disappearance demonstrates the fragility of even the most advanced human achievements and raises uncomfortable questions about the long-term sustainability of our own civilization. The mysterious figures and phenomena we have examined add personal and natural dimensions to these ancient puzzles. Unknown individuals preserved in death, legendary rulers whose tombs remain hidden, natural processes that appear to defy explanation. These mysteries remind us that questions without answers exist not only in the archaeological record, but throughout human experience and natural observation. What makes these mysteries particularly compelling in our current era is how they challenge the comfortable assumption of continuous human progress. We typically think of history as a story of gradual advancement, where knowledge accumulates over time, and each generation builds upon the achievements of its predecessors. However, the evidence we have examined suggests a far more complex pattern, where sophisticated knowledge and remarkable capabilities appear throughout history in ways that don't fit our standard narratives of technological and cultural development. The implications of these mysteries extend far beyond academic curiosity or historical interest. They suggest that human potential may be far greater and more varied than our contemporary understanding acknowledges. If ancient peoples could achieve things that we struggle to accomplish today, what does this tell us about the nature of human knowledge, creativity, and capability? What other achievements might be possible that we have not yet imagined or attempted? These ancient enigmas also highlight the importance of maintaining intellectual humility about what we know and don't know about human history and capability. The confident assertions of previous generations of scholars about ancient limitations have repeatedly been challenged by new discoveries and more sophisticated analysis. The mysteries we have explored serve as reminders that our current understanding of the past is incomplete and that future discoveries may require us to revise fundamental assumptions about human development and achievement. The role of modern technology in investigating these mysteries has been both revolutionary and humbling. Advanced dating techniques, sophisticated chemical analysis, satellite imagery, and artificial intelligence have provided unprecedented insights into ancient achievements, while often revealing additional layers of complexity and mystery. Each technological advance that promises to solve ancient puzzles seems to uncover new questions that are even more perplexing than those it answers. Yet perhaps the greatest value of these mysteries lies not in their eventual solution, but in their continuing ability to inspire wonder, curiosity, and investigation. They remind us that the world is far more mysterious and complex than our everyday experience might suggest. They challenge us to think beyond the limitations of our current knowledge and to remain open to possibilities that may seem impossible from our contemporary perspective. The question of where truth ends and myth begins runs throughout every mystery we have explored. How do we distinguish between genuine ancient achievements and later legends? How do we separate authentic archaeological evidence from misinterpretation or wishful thinking? How do we maintain rigorous scientific standards while remaining open to possibilities that challenge conventional understanding? These questions have no easy answers, but grappling with them is essential for anyone who seeks to understand the full complexity of human history. As we stand at the threshold of new technological capabilities that may finally unlock some of these ancient secrets, we must also recognize that solving mysteries may be less important than preserving the sense of wonder and possibility they represent. The questions these enigmas raise about human potential, ancient knowledge, and the nature of civilization itself may be more valuable than any specific answers we might discover. The ancient mysteries that science cannot yet explain serve as bridges between past and present, connecting us to ancestors whose achievements continue to inspire and perplex us thousands of years after their deaths. They remind us that human history is far stranger, more complex, and more wonderful than we often assume. They challenge us to expand our understanding of what our species has accomplished and what it might yet achieve. Perhaps most importantly, these mysteries invite each of us to become active participants in humanity's ongoing quest to understand its own past and potential. Whether as professional researchers applying the latest scientific techniques, or as curious individuals pondering the implications of these ancient puzzles, we all have roles to play in the continuing investigation of these extraordinary enigmas. The ancient world has not yet finished revealing its secrets. New discoveries continue to emerge, new analytical techniques continue to provide fresh insights, and new questions continue to arise from old evidence. The mysteries we have explored represent not endpoints but waypoints in humanity's endless journey of discovery about itself and its remarkable history. The truth about these ancient mysteries may lie somewhere between the most conservative scientific interpretations and the most extraordinary alternative theories. The challenge for each of us is to approach these questions with both rigorous critical thinking and genuine openness to possibilities that may exceed our current understanding. In that balance between skepticism and wonder, between scientific rigor and imaginative possibility, we may find not only answers to ancient questions but also inspiration for future achievements that will seem equally mysterious to those who discover them thousands of years from now.